A lot of people have done a lot of work for this to happen tonight, but we should especially thank Christian Collins for leading and organizing this event. Let's thank him now. He can hear you. Would you pray with me? Christian and the people leading this want to begin tonight with prayer. Pray with me if you will. God, our Creator, our Savior, and our Lord, we pray to you. You are God and we are not. You're the Lord of all things and we are not. You know all things and we do not. You are perfect and holy and without sin and we are not. You did not begin and we began by your decision. You're the Savior and we need your salvation. You left heaven and came here and you suffered because we suffer. You died because we die. And you rose from death to defeat the power of death so that we can live eternal life with you that begins now and lasts forever. So because of who you are, we submit to you and we seek you. We want to follow your will and your ways. We confess that the best way to live is to live life your way. And we know that you have shown us your way by your Son and through your scriptures. Thank you for the people who are speaking at this event. We pray that you would continue to give them wisdom and courage and protection. And we pray that everything said and done here would be filtered through the life and love of Jesus, and that you would show each of us how to carry out your will more fully in this world. We thank you for this opportunity, and we commit this time to you, and we pray all of this, Jesus, in your great name. Amen.
Hello, Texas Youth Summit. We are grateful to be here tonight in the greatest country on the planet. I ask you to hold that gratitude in your heart and join me, stand up, and let's say a pledge to the beautiful country in which we live. I'm looking for the flag. Okie dokie. Anybody know where the flag is? I can't see it. Can y'all see it? This is 20 questions. Who can see the flag? Maybe we forgot to bring the flag. All right. Who has a flag on their lapel? Men, stand, put your hands up. Do you have a flag? So we will say in our minds the Pledge of the Allegiance to our beautiful flag. There's a red, white, and blue over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now to the greatest state in the greatest country. Whoop. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you all and have a wonderful evening. God bless you. To God be the glory.
My name is Christian Collins. I founded Texas Youth Summit, and we need to get people involved in the fight to save America.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
I don't think for 1 second that God is done with America. Texas Youth Summit is necessary because we are combating the woke ideology that's being taught in our public school system.
We need men and women in this room to have courage to stand up for this country.
Well, God bless Texas, amen? Welcome to the 2023 Texas Youth Summit. Well, there's so many people that helped us organize this event, and I want to thank some of those people. So if you would stand as we recognize all of our volunteers, all of our donors, all of our sponsors, all of the media that's covering this event, as well as Constable Ryan Gable's office, who's working to keep this event secure. Let's stand up and give those folks a round of applause. Well, I started Texas Youth Summit 5 years ago, and I started Texas Youth Summit to educate young people on Judeo-Christian and conservative values. And for the last 5 years, it's grown bigger and better every year. And what I can say about that is we're doing the work that's necessary to combat the left, the wokeism and the socialism that's prevalent in our public schools and colleges alike. We're doing everything that we can to combat what's going on in these schools. And there's liberal teachers that are spewing anti-God, anti-family, and anti-American values. Texas Youth Summit exists to combat that. Well, many of you are probably in a place right now. You're at a pivotal time. You're trying to figure out, what am I going to do next? Or maybe some of you are asking yourselves, what is God calling me to do with my life? That's a very important question and a good place to be. I know that in my own life, I can say that I was at this place at one point. And we still are. We continue to be at that place at different times in our life. But I remember being in your position in high school and in college, and you have the whole world in front of you. And I remember growing up as in a Christian conservative home, but I went off to college. And unfortunately, even though my dad was a pastor, and still is today, I grew up in a Christian home. But I had a real well-meaning liberal professor that would show us Michael Moore videos on climate change and gun control. Exactly. And there was this time where I was grappling with the truth, struggling to find what I believed to be true. And so there I was, and I visited the University Democrat Club. I thought that I was going to vote for a liberal. But thankfully, I was turned on to the great Rush Limbaugh. Rush Limbaugh turned me into a conservative. So I majored in government, and I joined the Republican Club. And I had this real highlight of getting to do a lot of great work with the college Republicans debating health care against the university Democrats. And that was a real pivotal time for me. And then, so here I was, a conservative Republican. My name was Christian. I lived in the Bible Belt South, but my mind was seared and my heart was far away from God. My mind was seared and my heart was far away from God. I was not living for God, and I didn't even know if I believed in God. But it was this one summer between my junior and senior year, I read a book called A Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. That book helped me recognize the apologetics on the basis of why the gospel was true, and it all hinges on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So it was this touch that I had from God. It touched my mind to get me to a rational point where I could believe the gospel was true. But it was going to church and having this experience with God that touched my heart that turned my life around. And so I traded in partying and drinking every weekend in college to marathon training and going to a men's Bible study. And this experience of having been a liberal agnostic for a season of my life in school helps me recognize why it is so important that today we know why we believe what we believe. Our belief system, our worldview must be built on a firm foundation. Scripture talks about building your house on the rock and not on the sand, or else you'd be swept away by false doctrine. So now, I was a Christian, I devoted my life to Christ, but here I was in a place now where I didn't even know if politics was necessary or if I even wanted to be involved in politics anymore. A natural tendency of someone that's a Christian. I was so heavenly minded, I was no earthly good, in other words. And I majored in government, and so I was thinking for grad school I'd go to seminary and just drop politics altogether. That was my plan. But it was having a conversation with my dad, who was a pastor again, and he said, if you still really want to do that later, then by all means go for it. But, maybe get another degree, and if that's still in your heart afterward, then go that path. And so I did, and got a degree that's enabled me to teach at a college for many years. And so I've been teaching in the college and university system. But at that point, I also watched later a movie called Amazing Grace. And this movie is based on the true life story of a man named William Wilberforce. And he's in the 1800s, and he had been in the British Parliament for 5 years. He's 21 years old. And he goes to his pastor after he becomes an evangelical Christian, and he says, I want to quit politics, and I want to go into the ministry like you. And his pastor, who had been a former slave trader, had a lot of guilt for his past, but he recognized the value that this young man had because he could make a difference in politics. And he encouraged William at that pivotal point in his life. And William spent the next 50 years of his life wrung out to abolish the British slave trade in the British Empire. And it wasn't during his life, but shortly after that he was successful. Sometimes some of the things that you're going to do in life, you don't know if it's going to make a difference in this life, but it'll plant a seed and it'll make a difference in the next life. And that's exactly what happened. That story has been a compass north for me throughout my life as I've wrestled to find purpose in my work. And I've realized that if I look at my work through the lens of ministry and realizing that there are ministry opportunities every single day in whatever line of work you do, and especially in politics, then you therefore can be a minister. And I think about that story, and I think about you guys here. And I want to encourage you by saying that God has a plan for your life. Maybe you aren't supposed to work in politics like I do, but maybe whatever you do, it could be something totally different, business or a teacher or law enforcement, first responder, military. There's all kinds of things that you can do, but do it unto the glory of God. And in that way, God will bless your work. Look at it as a ministry. And guys, we are in a very pivotal time in our nation's history. And there's so much going on right now. We need a generation of warriors to fight the culture war. If someone would bring me some water, that would be helpful. Didn't plan on being this parched when I got up here, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. But here I was, at this pivotal point in my life, and I recognize that you're in a pivotal point in your life. And you can make all the difference. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. We are in a war in this country. And it's not just a cultural war, it's a spiritual war for the heart and soul of this country. China is building up economically, making deals with our allies and adversaries alike to displace the US dollar as the world currency. They're building up militarily, not just to take over Taiwan, but to take on America's might. China is very nefariously working to destroy America from within. They're fighting America from within. One of the ways that they do that is through TikTok. In their country, they're very strict with the algorithms and they only allow educational content. But in this country, they push gender dysphoria and they push self-harm ideology on our young people. It's corrupting them. And fentanyl. They're pushing fentanyl right across our southern border. And just this last year, we had 107,000 people die from fentanyl overdose. Absolutely terrible. Our country spent over $130 billion on Ukraine's border, but we can't spend $5 billion to secure our border. What's up with that? There were 98 known suspected terrorists that were captured last year. 98 known suspected terrorists that were captured last year. That's too many, and that's just the ones that we know about. Our border is wide open. How many of you have seen Sound of Freedom? Just about everybody in the room. Well, it's shined light on the sex trafficking, especially with minors, that's been going on for a very long time. It shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening. And since Joe Biden took office, there have been 7 million illegal immigrants that have come into our country. That's one too many. And where are they going exactly? Well, they're going to places like Colony Ridge. Colony Ridge is in the news lately. It's just east of Montgomery County, and it's just a little north of Houston in a place called Liberty County. 75,000 illegal immigrants there. 4 cartels are operating out of there. It's a hub. And the developer, Trey Harris, sells lots of land, and they're very underdeveloped land. There's dogs running around without collars, as the Daily Wire reports. It's like a third world country. And it's happening right here in Texas, and it's happening all over the country. They're going all over places. And the Democrat governors, they love it when it happens in red Texas, but they don't like it so much when it happens in New York City. Right? Then they complain. Mayor Eric Adams had a big problem with that. And so we're in a very tough situation in our country. And we've got to do a lot of work to secure the southern border. I hope that the National Guard is sent down to secure the southern border. The LGBT trans issue is running rampant. Of Of course, China is the one who's pushing this gender dysphoria through TikTok, but there are liberal activists who are doing the same thing in our public school systems and on TikTok, and it's corrupting the minds of our youth. And this isn't just happening in other parts of this country. You know, just up in Willis, there was a drag queen that visited that public school at Willis High School. And in other states, they're pushing Lupron. And these puberty blockers alter these young girls who take this for the rest of their life, where they're not able to have children, and it has many other ill side effects. It's absolutely terrible. It creates anger and confusion. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Shouldn't be happening. And the last school shooters, by the way, in Tennessee and Texas, they were trans young adults. Not good, not good, and that's oftentimes what can happen. This is a moment, just like when Queen Esther in the Bible spoke up. We have to speak up. We have to fight for our freedom as young people. President Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Some of you have seen this on your shirts. And we have those shirts outside, by the way, for sale. But we're going to give a lot of them away too. But that's a theme here. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And he goes on to say that you have to fight for it. And it must be fought for, protected, and handed on to them to do the same, or one day we will spend our sunset years telling them to do the same. We're children and our children's children what it was once like to live in the United States of America. In other words, the United States of America could become unrecognizable. And as I look upon the young people in this room, I'm so optimistic about this country's future because you are the freedom fighters that are stepping up to fight back, to take back America. Look, you know, I've learned that when the cause is bigger than a conference, then God can really do some amazing things. He can open up new doors and new opportunities. He can make a way and expand your influence. When the cause is bigger than a conference or bigger than an individual, then God can have his way and truly be glorified. And that is why here at Texas Youth Summit, we are so excited to partner and work with Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk. We are excited to work with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA to instill a Christian worldview in you, to instill Judeo-Christian values and conservative principles to fight back and take back our country. There's a lot of ways that we can fight back, and I know some of you are probably asking, how can we go about this the right way? And just a nod to some of the parents, you know, there are so many of you that work so hard and you spend time homeschooling your kids. How many homeschool families do we have here? Wow, that's a lot of hands. Well, if you have your kids in the public school system, then you should think about homeschooling your kids if you don't like what's going on in the public school system. But at the very least, not everybody can do that. And at the very least, what you should do is have dinner with your family. Ask your kids, what did you learn at school today? Maybe some of you should consider running for public office. School board would be a great place to start. Take back our school boards. And we should encourage our pastors to encourage the congregations as the body of Christ to be registered to vote and to vote our Christian values. And young people, what can you do? You may think to yourself, I'm not 40 or 50. What can I do? Well, you can start right now. You know, George Washington was just 21 when he received his military commission. Abraham Lincoln was 22 when he first ran for public office. And Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. There were a dozen signers under the age of 30. James Madison was 25 when that was written, and in his early 30s when he wrote the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. Young people can absolutely make a difference. So how can you get involved? I just had someone ask me this question. How can you get involved? Well, start a Turning Point USA chapter. Or join one. Get involved that way. You can do a lot of things. You can get involved with your elected officials. Intern. You can join a nonprofit. You can intern that way. You'll learn so much by serving someone else's vision, and it'll create new opportunities for you to do the same. And engage your peers with the conservative message. Become a conservative missionary and share your values with your peers. Get them involved in the political process. And get 10 of your friends to register to vote. And by the way, you can register to vote right out in the hallway. Another thing that I want to convey is that you should work on your character in this time as much as your resume. You can spend your entire life trying to build something, and just in minutes or even seconds, it can all be taken away and crumble down because of poor decision making. So make the right decisions. Proverbs 4:23 talks about guard your heart, because from it, all else flows. And it starts with your heart. Guard your heart. Another point that I want to convey is that in this time, this pivotal time in your life, we all want to be fighters, right? And we have to think about, okay, how are we going to fight? How are we going to stand for our values? How are we going to share the truth with people? Because so many of us want to be light. You think about salt and light. So many of us want to be light, right? We want to just get out there and shine a bright light in people's face, tell them what we believe, and let the chips fall where they may. But we also have to be salt. Salt makes things taste good. It makes things more palatable. And when we're talking to people, we have to talk to people in a way that they'll understand and the way that they'll best receive that information. And so my encouragement to you is to do as Ronald Reagan was referred to, and be a happy warrior. Fight people with grace and with a smile on your face. That's hard for me because sometimes I like to stir the pot. But as Christians, we're Christians first. Do it with integrity. Do it with grace. Guys, I'm so excited about this conference, aren't you? We've poured our heart and soul into this conference. We have some of the biggest names in the conservative movement. Tomorrow, you will hear from Yeonmi Park. She defected from communist North Korea. Another one we'll hear from is Riley Gaines. Of course, she swam against the, quote, Leah Thomas. She's working to keep men out of women's sports. And Senator Ted Cruz. And many informative panels. And some of the names you'll hear from tonight are Abby Johnson, Kimberly Guilfile, and Charlie Kirk. And Don Jr. So drink some caffeine, stay engaged, and pay attention. If you go to bed early, if you can, get back here in the morning. Let's make it a great conference. And God bless you and God bless Texas.
Kimberly Guilfoyle.
And what he has done in 2 years has just been an abysmal failure. I don't even think anybody actually thought it was going to be this bad.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
President Trump is a total fighter. They cannot break him. No matter one sham indictment, he's going to meet the challenge each and every time. And really, that strength and fortitude and character is really what made him to have the backbone to be such a strong and fantastic president.
Perfect. Well, hello, Texas. How are we doing tonight? Fantastic. It is wonderful to be here with you all. And I just want to say a special heartfelt thank you to Christian Collins, because he has done such an incredible job with this movement that he is doing across this country, and our other great friend, Charlie Kirk. And we are deeply grateful and appreciative for all of you choosing to be here, for all of you choosing to fight for this country. As proud Americans, we do not apologize for being law-abiding and faithful people who love God. Is that right? Because with the help of God, the hard work of everyone in this room, and the grace and courage of Donald John Trump, we will take this country back, and you can take that to the bank. It really is so inspiring to see all of you out here and to meet so many of you that we did in the room there, and take a few moments to say hello and remember you and remember your faces as the people who showed up because you loved this country, you love your family, and you love America, and you know that she is worth fighting for. And it's wonderful to see so many young Americans in this room, really proud to share and amplify their America First voices, to come here together in fellowship and in courage and in strength and in love for our country. It is truly an honor to be here at the Texas Youth Summit, because it's events like this that remind us why we do what we do, why we fight for the values that we believe in. And one of the reasons I'm so excited to be here is because all of you get what is at stake in this country. You get what it means to be an America First conservative. You get what it means to stop playing the left's games and to not be afraid of being canceled, because your faith and your courage and the way you were raised makes you stronger than that and stronger than them on the left. You get what it means to organize against the destructive Democrat agenda that is trying to destroy this country, and to go on offense against a corrupt political class that is driving this country off a cliff, but not on our watch. A lot of times I'm asked, how did we, Kimberly, get to this point? A point where our justice system would be hijacked by an unhinged swamp, bureaucrats in the swamp that interfere in our elections and destroy the fabric of our country. a point where woke policing would show up not just in college classrooms, but inside major businesses and inside the schools and classrooms of our young children. And we are saying no to that. These are our children. We will protect them from these demonic individuals on the left. This is a point where woke word policing would show up all across this country. They are trying to take it over in an avalanche, but our strength and our numbers and our majority is stronger than anything they can bring against us. Never forget that. And at a point in this country where everywhere we look, we see far left extremism trying to take over every aspect of our lives. They want to tell you what to think, what to feel, how to vote, and how to raise your children. And we're not going to stand for that. That's not what we stand for as God-abiding, loving Christians and America First patriots. And we got here because for far too long, conservatives stood on the sidelines as the left took over every major institution. But I have news for them. It's you, all of you, who are going to change that. We are done playing defense. We are going on offense. We are done with business as usual. And we are done with being told how to live our lives. We will decide. We will raise our children. We will worship in faith in the churches that we choose. And no one is going to take that away from us. We will not bend a knee to them, only before God in church. That is our God-given right. So I'm here to tell you that the stakes in 2024, and you know this, and beyond, because we are just beginning to fight this battle, they could not be higher. And the contrast between Donald Trump, this incredible movement, and Joe Biden and the destructive Democrat agenda could not be more clear. Donald Trump's courage is more inspiring every day, standing up for the forgotten men and women, battling one corrupt witch hunt after another, and putting it all on the line to stand up for what is right and what is just. Donald Trump keeps doing what he does best, inspiring patriotic Americans all across this beautiful country, standing strong in the face of nonstop corruption and evil, and defying political gravity over and over again. The swamp is so terrified of him. And they should be, because he stands for all of you and you have his back and he appreciates it. And God bless you for that. Let's contrast that, shall we, to Sleepy Joe, Corrupt Joe, Crooked Joe, whatever. There's like 10 nicknames a minute. Now we're calling him Slip and Fall Joe, Slip and Fall. They're putting like glue on the bottom of his like sneakers so he doesn't fall over. I'm not even kidding you. It's that crazy. One more fall, that's it. Unbelievable. Joe Biden never built anything, okay? He's lived in the swamp, he helped create the swamp, and he used his power to profit at the expense of the American people, at the expense of people in this room. That's who Joe Biden is, and don't you ever forget it. He's not some champion for the working people. He's a champion for the corruption inside Washington and government. There is no working class Joe, or Scranton Joe, or Amtrak Joe. It's all a lie. So let me ask you, how many in this room, okay, are more committed than ever to supporting Donald Trump in 2024? Amen to that. Boy, do we miss him, right? Who cares about a few mean tweets? Let's get somebody in that knows how to run this country and that our foreign adversaries are worried about. You won't see China or North Korea or Russia or any of them acting up anymore, would you? We know, because we had him in before and we know what he can do. And let me tell you something. All of us in this room are part of the Make America Great Again mission to destroy the deep state, end the endless wars, secure our borders, restore Trump-era prosperity, and most of all, to live free as born free Americans. You hear me? Never ever let the lying left convince you that they have your best interests in mind. This new extreme Democratic Party has one overarching goal: to destroy your life, to exhaust you into obedience, and then somehow convince you that you're the problem if you challenge any of it. But those tired tactics are not going to work any longer, because you all know what it means to be America first. It means border security, national sovereignty, lower costs, lower crime, higher wages, energy independence, ending the endless wars, school choice, free and fair trade, equal justice, and building the patriot economy. And most importantly, sending a message to every corrupt left-wing radical that we're done playing nice. We are going to win, and we are going to win bigly in 2024. It's a technical term, folks. Donald Trump puts America first every single day. I know that. He's my great friend for 18 years. And even as he must fight one baseless witch hunt after another, he never gives up. We see it in the polls, in the momentum, and in Donald Trump himself. They are obsessed with destroying him because he stands up for all of us. Donald Trump's courage and the courage of MAGA champions, like everyone in this room, inspires me every single day to continue to fight for what is right. Because Biden has sold out America. Trump loves America. And America loves him. And starting in January 2025, Donald Trump takes care of all the unfinished business. Yes. I cannot wait. The reckoning is coming, let me tell you. Years and even decades from now, our American legacy will not just be the abuses and corruption that we uncovered, but the actions we took to stop it, and the leaders we forced to reignite a new American era of triumph and achievement and prosperity. America's future is in our hands. America's destiny is in our control, and America's prosperity is in our hearts and our souls. I want to thank all of the amazing patriots out here tonight, and I want to tell you sincerely from the bottom of my heart, may God bless you and your families and your children. Stay strong, stay vigilant, never stop fighting, never give up, because this country is worth it, and I know that we will be able to restore it to the greatness that we once had. But we can't give up. It's every single day, and it's turning up for elections, and it's putting people out of office that don't care about our values or love the country that we do. And I want to tell you, it's such an honor and pleasure to be with such incredible fighters as the beautiful Trump family, my amazing fiance, Donald Trump Jr., one of the strongest, most amazing, brave hearts of the MAGA movement. They come at him every single day. It's like reverse kryptonite. It only makes him stronger, and it only makes him fight even harder. And we love to stand for this country and for our flag and for the first responders, for law enforcement, the brave men in the military. We love what this country stands for. And I want to tell you, let's give a round welcome of applause to introduce the son of the former president and future president again of the United States, Donald Trump Jr. God bless you guys. God bless this country. Thank you for what you do.
We've seen the lies. If we don't stand up to it, even when it's obvious, that's not a great end result for freedom.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
people understand now, perhaps more than ever, again, just how far we've fallen, just how far the other side's willing to go to lie about all of these things. And again, I think you look at the results and you see it's pretty clear. You need Donald Trump. You need someone who can actually fix this, someone who will actually fight back.
What's going on, Texas? You guys doing well? Hopefully you're doing well in this room, because it doesn't feel like we're doing that well outside of this room. You guys sort of notice that? I have a feeling if we were going towards the path to destruction that we are right now under President Trump, people would be talking about it. If we had a president that their plan, you saw this week, was to put Joe Biden in orthotics and have him do some basic calisthenics because their election plan is to stop having him fall on his face in front of world leaders. I mean, doesn't seem like a winning strategy for America. What do you think? Yeah, you're laughing, but that's where we're at today in America. That's the strategy. Remember the handshake to nowhere? And to show you what we're up against, guys, just so we understand exactly what we're up against, you saw the handshake to nowhere because the leader of the free world can't remember how to get off a basic stage that he got on 30 seconds prior to that. But when I called it out, they said, no. Media, I got fact-checked. No, he was waving to the audience with an open hand. I go, the audience was there. Like, it's not that hard. He was like a deer in the headlights because whatever they gave him had worn off. We hear almost nothing from our mainstream media about the Biden impeachment inquiry. But I have a feeling, folks, and I only know this because by this time in my father's presidency, I had done approximately 50 hours of testimony for treason. So we understand what that means. That is a crime punishable by death. Right? Hunter Biden, I'm not even sure he's been subpoenaed yet, unless it happened today and I just wasn't paying attention. I had done 50 hours for treason. They say, there's no evidence. No evidence whatsoever. Other than emails, photos, wire transfers, sworn testimony, recorded conversations. You're right, other than that, there's no evidence. But it didn't stop them from doing Russia for what, 3 years? Some of them are still running with it. It was proven to be a lie, but that doesn't matter. It was used to interfere in elections, both midterms and generals. That doesn't matter. It was the basis of an impeachment inquiry that happened like that because we're playing two different games, right? And I'm watching it this week. We'll talk about this because I'm curious to see what you guys think. But I'm watching, I go, when I see some of the rhinos get soft, no, well, there's rules and decorum. I go, how come they don't play by rules and decorum? They just use it to you and you bend over and fold so rapidly, right? The rules only go one way. When the rules benefit the Democrats, they enforce them. When they're against the Democrats, they don't enforce them, but we play along. When I bet back the second time to the Senate Intelligence Committee, a second time, because they needed to bring me back for something that was already by this point disproven and a lie, but the Democrats on the committee play that. No, well, it's a bipartisan committee. So they call me back, they do this, and the head of the committee at the time took me into the room after another hours of grilling. And again, they're not looking for anything. They know it's a sham. But what they figure is if they get you in a room for 50 hours over multiple months in different committees, maybe you say something just slightly different. Because then they got you for perjury. Right? The guys like, Brennan, McCabe, Strzok, they can lie before Congress. There's no consequence to them doing it. They did it in front of the American people for years. There's no consequence. In fact, they get rewarded. They get high-paced jobs. They get to be the commentator on CNN talking about decency, the rule of law. They lied before Congress. None of that matters. It only goes one way. I understand this crowd, so I got to be a little careful, but I always ask, if it was the Don Jr. laptop from hell, I'm just saying, The Don Jr. laptop from hell, I imagine, would be, what would we say, disqualifying? I'd be in Gitmo, and my father would have sent me there. Okay? Because I would have deserved it. They'd have thrown away the key. And just so we're clear, right? You're watching the media do this, right? Hunter Biden, he's a legitimate businessman. I go, listen, the Chinese are many things, but they're not stupid. They're vicious, they're dictatorial. I'm not apologizing for them, but they're not morons like we are. Right? They don't have like a diversity, equity, inclusion program that says, you know, our money managers that we send $1 billion to, we don't have enough crackhead representation. We need more crackheads managing $1 billion, right? They don't do that. We would probably do that. That's an underrepresented group. We must allow that to have, they don't do that. They only do that if they're buying you, right? Just like every other thing that was against Trump, you saw the ruling this week. Magically, about a few hours after, oh no, the wire transfer had Joe Biden's home address on it. You know, because the emails with 10% for the big guy and Hunter saying that, you know, I don't take half your salary like dad does to the rest of the family, who all also happen to be on the payroll. I'm trying to figure out why the Chinese government and CCP-related entities are paying the grandchildren, the mistress, the ex-wife. None of them are international business people. Minor details, Hunter wasn't either, but that doesn't stop them. I have a feeling that would be a problem. But no, there's no evidence. That's before we get into the photographs, but this crowd is way too nice and conservative to get into that. But I have a feeling if some of the videos that we have seen, if they were Don Jr., would also be a big deal. I say these things, oftentimes much more explicitly than I will in this room. I gotta behave a little bit. There's younger kids here, you know. They know what I'm saying. They're probably worse than even me at times, but you know, not on a stage. You know, I have a feeling that those things would be a bigger deal, but they aren't. But again, you know why they're not a bigger deal is because we're playing two different games. We're playing t-ball, right? While the other side's playing hardball. For far too long, we've said, well, we're going to live and let live, and we'll turn the other cheek, while the other side has weaponized every institution in government, every institution in our culture against us. And you know who the bad people are? You know who the terrorists are? Practicing Catholics? No, they're terrorists, according to our DOJ and FBI. You know who else is? Yes, especially concerned mothers who simply would love their children to, I don't know, learn maybe math or English in school rather than the 9,476 genders. And I don't mean to forget about the other 1,000 that have probably been created since I started this speech about 10 minutes ago. Because, because that is literal violence. Me not including them is literal violence in their mind. You know what's not violence? When a guy drives through a Christmas parade in Wisconsin. That's not violence. A car magically did it. Remember the headlines? A car drives through a parade. I was like, that's incredible. You know, just like guns shoot people, not sickos. We're playing two different games. I got to ask the crowd, actually, because I've done this all over the country. And thus far, the results are stunning based on what I hear from, let's call it Senate Republicans for the most part. How many of you would say Ukraine is a #1 issue for you by show of hands? No. Okay. How about top 3? No one. How about top 10? Okay. As God is my witness, not one person has raised their hand in this room. Am I correct? As a top 10 issue. It's a top 10 issue for you? Okay, so there's one dude. That's the first time. No, seriously, that's fine. That's fine. I've done this 50 times across the country in front of thousands of people. It has not been it's now a top 10 issue for at least one person of thousands, but that's it. But no, and that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Okay? Mitch McConnell is out there saying we need to send more trillions over there to protect their border or something. We're not going to have any controls on the money. And he's saying it's the number one Republican issue. And I'm wondering, why is there such incredible a disjoint between the people we send to represent us in Congress and the actual people? You guys saw it. I'll give the one guy in the room, I'll give him 100% credit. So that was the first time. I was batting 1,000 until this guy with about 15,000 people probably. And that's fine. But think about that. In a room this big, you guys aren't afraid to speak up. I'm not bullying you. I asked it in a very nebulous way. I'm giving the guy that said it total pass, even though I totally disagree. Well, I would like to, I don't know, maybe take care of our border first. You know, if 10,000 Russians invading Ukraine is an invasion, why isn't 7 million at our border? I can't figure it out. Now, I understand that I am new to this, relatively speaking. Relative to like the people who are in Congress, literally dying in Congress. Like, I'm new to this. You know, Joe Biden's been there for 732 years or something. I can't remember exactly. But it's not that hard to figure out. Why is one a priority and one is totally not, even to the Republicans? I get why the Democrats want it. They want to populate the cities. They want to do this at the next census. Even if you're not a citizen, you get counted. You sway Congress and that's it. They'll never actually play by the rules, like the globalists will never actually play by their rules. The environmental lobby, John Kerry and stuff like that, he's never really going to play by the rules. Remember that one last month, I guess it was? Mr. Kerry, as you go to all these climate conferences on your plane, I don't have a plane. Sir, you were here under oath. You don't have, no, I don't have a plane. Well, it says right here on the manifest, the plane of the Kerry Family Trust. He goes, oh, well, you know, my wife has a plane. I'm like, oh. I mean, but this is the sort of hypocrisy that we see daily, and we sit there and we take it like, oh, it's great. Bill Gates, he doesn't have to worry about flying on a plane that has more carbon emissions than any of you will produce in your entire lifetime in a 4-hour flight. Because, well, he's fighting for a cause, so it's different. He's exempt. The people that want you to eat bugs, they'll be fine with you eating bugs. They're going to keep eating steak. But like, as long as they get rid of most of the cows and feed you bugs, you know, someone's got to eat the rest of the cows, right? It's going to be them, not you. How is it this hard? Right? I mean, I couldn't do it. It got so bad, the debate the other night. No, but seriously, it's Texas, so I'm always curious to see a different opinion. It's a little bit closer, but I'm watching a debate where it felt like it was being hosted by MSDNC, right? Like they're talking, what will you do in favor of gun control? I'm like, what? Like, I thought we were being punked, and I'm watching a bunch of Republicans vying for the presidency of the United States, the leader of the conservative movement and the Republican Party, like, argue about what we're going to give the Democrats, who would give us exactly zero in anything. No quarter, no nothing. You bend over, you succumb. You give in. You totally capitulate, or they will cancel you. They will finish you. There's no question about it. I saw that on gun control. I saw virtually the same thing on amnesty. What could possibly go wrong? Hey, guess what? It was in the Reagan Library. I think they figured that one out, but they still haven't. And what you realize is there's no consequence to failure in D.C. If you're a Republican and you bend that knee, if you capitulate when it matters, you can actually be kind of conservative most of the other time. You know, you can go talk to, usually it's a small group of about 4 people, and be conservative. As long as they know you're going to roll over and die on the things that actually matter. When the people that put you in office actually want you to have some guts, there's a better word for it, but I'll save that as well. If you, yes, backbone, that's almost exactly what I was thinking about. If you bend, you have an easy existence in Washington, D.C., and I think that's what it must be. You know, it's like, I just want to be loved. And I asked a congressman, someone who's a fighter, it was Matt Gaetz, it was like a couple of years ago. I was talking to Matt Gaetz, I go, like, why won't they fight, man? I'm so new to this, hey, I'm the son of a billionaire from Manhattan. Like, how am I more aggressively conservative than I don't know, various congressmen from Texas or other places? I was like, I don't even understand. He goes, well, it's almost like, you ever see the movie The Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy? It's the name you know, right? So some guy's in Congress for 40 years, he dies, someone with the same last name enters the race. You know what I'm talking about? And wins, becomes a congressman, and this person sat on a city council for 20 years doing nothing, and now they're in Congress. And someone's kissing their ass. And they're invited to the special dinner, and they think they're cool and special, and guess what, folks? They're in the big leagues, and they're never, ever, ever going to leave until they carry them out on a box. And that's what it is. I love that. And that's what it is. They're never leaving that power, so they'll do whatever it is to stay. And the problem is, in D.C., all of that power is concentrated. If the Washington Post, the Amazon, Jeff Bezos' own Washington piece, well, maybe the hit piece they do on me will only be a 4 instead of a 3 out of 10. Maybe they won't, I'm like, why don't you fight against that? When those guys hit me, it's a badge of honor. At this point, when conservative media hits me, it's a badge of honor because they don't and have not earned the respect to be out there fighting for the vast majority of the people that I see in this country. And you get it, you understand it. Because I look at, I came from a business background, unlike Hunter. He's just made a lot more money because, it's nice to be able to sell out your country. In my next life, I want to be a Democrat because you can be literally insane. You can do anything and there's no consequence. It's kind of nice every once in a while. I was like, this week, I apparently, I guess did fraud or something. I was trying to figure out with my lawyers who the victims are. They can't figure it out, but we were hit by a New York City judge for all sorts of things because we paid back banks that we borrowed money from in full with interest. I'm trying to figure out what we did wrong. They can just disregard witness testimony from the banks in question that said, of course we do diligence on things, right? A judge can disregard a broker in Palm Beach, Florida that says Mar-a-Lago is worth X and say it's worth 1% of X in his mind. And just doesn't matter. We'll disregard all of that stuff. That's what we're up against, guys. If you think this is a moment where, they just don't like Trump. No. This is the case study. Look at all the people they're going after. And I won't compare these people to my father, but just as an example. Russell Brand this week, right? Last week. Right? Strange, man. Russell Brand, just like Justice Kavanaugh, is apparently, according to these people, a serial rapist. That's terrible, obviously. Why didn't this news come out when he was married to Katy Perry and one of the most famous people in the world? I'm trying to figure that out, because you'd think if someone was so terrible, you'd have a problem with them prior to them just being I don't know, let's call out vax mandates. Let's call out Big Pharma. Let's call out the hypocrisy. Let's call out the war machine. No, but they didn't have a problem with them before that. As long as you're doing their bidding or agnostic, you can do and live a very peaceful existence. You know, I saw Jaco Bouillon's in here earlier. I know he's done some incredible. Jaco, are you in here still? No. Done some incredible work as it relates to human trafficking and child sex trafficking across the world. I've known him since probably, early 2015. That's about the time I met Tim Ballard. I met Tim. I heard the story. You've all seen the movie at this point, probably. Right? Yeah. So I introduce Tim Ballard. I was like, listen, I don't make many calls to the White House. Again, I'm not Hunter. If I get involved, it becomes a problem. But I was like, this one, I was like, you know what? Even in the insanity of the world that we were living in at that time, I go, we should all be able to agree that, trafficking of children for the purposes of sex is a bad thing, right? You would think that we live in a normal world. You would think that would be 100% in a country where political victories are won on the margin of basis points, 0.02% difference. But you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong, folks. I made that phone call, told my dad, I was like, listen, you realize there's a problem, right? You know that something, but until you actually get it, you have no idea the scope. Of course there's bad people, but you thought of it as tens of people, not tens of thousands of children. Right? So you start hearing about the numbers hey man, Dad, you gotta meet this, because this is a guy working in the federal government, working for these things, doing these things. Meets with my father. And this is when I knew we're actually fighting evil on the left. It was the first time. And listen, at this point, they'd already tried, I had met him. I didn't make the call till a little bit later. And, they had already tried framing me for Russia. I was still naive enough. Even in Russia, when they're trying to put me, I guess in the electric chair, I was like, well, if the FBI says, something's wrong, there must be something wrong. They must be trying to do good, right? If the CIA is saying these things, now I realize none of that is even remotely true. In fact, it's probably the opposite, just like, again, concerned mothers going to a PT meeting are domestic terrorists. I can't stress that enough. If that point in and of itself does not get you thinking about just how far we've fallen as a nation, I don't know what will. Because again, it's not it's some left-wing magazine that wrote this. This is the head of the FBI. Our Department of Justice that seemingly has been weaponized against all of its citizenry, right? We talked about the judge in New York, but it's no different than the judge in D.C. They find the most vicious one, and all the January 6th people get in front of that one, and they get to find them and throw them in jail for years, because they took a selfie inside the velvet ropes. By the time they got into Congress, they didn't even know they weren't supposed to be there. They hold the exculpatory evidence for 2 years, doesn't matter. So I introduced Tim Ballard kind of de facto to the White House, and was like, you guys take it from there. And they form a committee to look into the trafficking of children and sex trafficking of minors. And they do a press conference, and they're going to fund it with $200, $300 million, something like that. And I'm like, this is great. And the left was losing their minds. Remember that one? How dare they do? I'm like, what? Seriously? They're covering for their friends at this point. And again, those things, like every other conspiracy theory, when I say conspiracy theory, let's call it the truth prior to others actually acknowledging it. Right? No. It's always risky, but can someone please name a conspiracy theory that wasn't proven to be right 6 months later? It used to be a year, right? Russia took 3 years. And with each and every conspiracy theory, when the left loses their mind about it, you're over the target, right? Now it's 6 minutes till it's disproven. And you're right, but There's no other explanation for it. Each and every one has been proven right. Your conspiracy theorist friend is owed major apologies by the major institutions in media who have lied to us for decades. Big tech who've smothered and censored those things. And again, just because you don't hear about something doesn't make it not true. Big tech is a $1 trillion industry, weaponized and designed to smother anything that isn't in lockstep with the Democrat Party. Our mainstream media, including a vast majority of conservative mainstream media, is in that same exact boat. I actually legitimately believe that today we are winning on the issues. People get it, but there are still lots of people. You know, they're agnostic. They're trying to feed their family in Joe Biden's economy, and that's harder and harder to do every day. We're not in a fair fight, folks. We're not, our ideas versus their ideas. We think that, but it's like, no, it's our ideas versus their ideas backed by a $1 trillion regime that has instilled fear in people, whether it's online, big tech, or a $1 trillion mainstream media regime that will dox, that will call you out, that will try aggressively to ruin your life. They're trying to do it to us every day. One of the other sort of memes that's proven 100% right was like, they're not really after Trump. They're after you. He's just in the way. No, but think about it. What is it now? I think it's total offenses, 750 years plus the death penalty. I mean, that's kind of a big one. No, in some of the claims against my father. I mean, he's a young and vibrant man, but, it's a long time. You don't think that them doing that to him is designed to send a message? You don't think that, it's like, well, no, it's different for him because he did all these things. Again, they've all been disproven, just like Russia was. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Stick you in a New York jury with this, and we'll make sure we cherry pick the worst possible judge in the world. It doesn't matter if he's been thrown over every time on appeals. They got the appeals court too, and if you're on a jury, even if you think it's ridiculous, is it worth your social credit score going down in New York where you'd be thrown out of your schools? You'd be tarred and feathered in a PTA meeting if you're the actual person on the jury that was like, listen, it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong here. Again, it's not like we haven't been doing business in New York for 30 years. It was only when we put the little R next to our name that it changed. You know who I did my first political fundraiser for ever? And this is a hard one for me to actually admit out loud, but Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, no, seriously. His mother and my grandmother used to sit next to each other in the hair salon in Queens growing up. And if you're in New York real estate and it's the attorney general, that's the person that literally has to sign off on every one of your offering plans, right? You build a building, you're going to sell unit 502, they've got to sign off on it. That's how the system works. You have to play that. I've been a lifelong conservative. It doesn't matter. My first political fundraiser was for him because that was the way it worked. We understand all these things. Trump understood all those things. That's when he called out Hillary. Like, oh, you're yakking about all these things, but you did nothing to change them because your donors do exactly what I do. I'm just man enough to call it out. I'm not going to be the hypocrite about it. But in those areas now, you know how to stop the looting in Philadelphia? Give everyone a MAGA hat. Look, come on. They'd be in jail in less than a minute. But, now I read the headline. It was this week. I think it was the looting in Philadelphia was because people they were looting for bread. I'm like, last time I checked, and I don't go there often, but my daughter does, Lululemon doesn't have a lot of bread. Because I'm looking at the store, I'm like, there's not a lot of bread in a Lululemon. There's not a lot of bread in the Gucci store, and yet everyone seems like, unless you're eating Gucci loafers, which you're probably not, But this is the insanity. You know, I remember mostly peaceful protests in the summer of love of 2020. At least that's what I was told. It didn't seem like that on TV, but I'm not an imbecile. Because there were buildings burning in the background, but it was mostly peaceful. Then the reporter who's saying it's mostly peaceful gets hit in the head with a brick. Like, doesn't seem mostly peaceful. But again, it doesn't matter. So that's why we have to get involved, guys. I get it. They've made it very difficult for people to want to stand up because you get picked out. They'll target you. They'll go after you. They're going to make it uncomfortable. You know how much more uncomfortable it's going to be if they win? You know how much more uncomfortable it's going to be for your children when they don't have, let's call it the freedoms I guess we thought we had. It's not real, right? Just like, again, you know, even me, even with what they were doing, it took me a while. I will say, you know, one of my biggest regrets, like early in my father's presidency, was like, as I mentioned, it was like, you know, when they tried targeting General Flynn, because I'm sitting there like, wow, the FBI said it, the CIA said something, there must be something to it. But I knew the man, and I was like, fine, I'm not going to come out against him, but I'm also not going to be in there fighting and defending because like, there's got to be something to it. And again, there doesn't have to be anything to any of it. So what we have to do is we have to get uncomfortable. We have to be unafraid. If they can put out one man by himself, they can take him out. They did it to the most powerful man in the world. They did it to my father. Now again, all of those things are lies, but it doesn't matter. Just like all the conspiracy theories that are proven true, we sit there and I get on Twitter and I'm guilty of it myself. I'm not pretending I'm immune. Ha, see, we were right. Ha, you guys are stupid. We knew all along. But guess what? They got what they wanted out of each and every one of their lies. Again, there's no consequence to being wrong. There's no penalty. None of these people get their lives back, their homes back, the years they spend in prison back, the tens of millions of dollars blown on legal fees to fight these things. Just because something's BS doesn't mean you don't have to deal with it. And 2 years later, Fauci was working for the Chinese and taking money there and lying before Congress. Oh, it's different, right? It's fine. We need to get in the game. We need to get together. We need to be fighting the same battles. We need to take the wins when we can get them. And that's why it's important for us to all get together right now and actually start fighting this battle. They're loving what's going on right now. You know, the consultants that are being paid very heavily. And I saw this most out of Ron DeSantis' campaign because, you see where the money goes. It's public information. You know, when big consulting firm, they take $60 million profit. Like a billionaire donor gives, these guys take 25% of the ad buy for every commercial that's run, 25% of the placement. It's their creative agency that's making the ad. That's another 20%. It's one giant grift. And we're seeing it again. The reason people in the single digits aren't polling, well, I can leverage this into a cabinet position. I can leverage it into a book tour. I'm not sure what Chris Christie's doing. Maybe he likes the free meals. Listen, if you're Chris Christie, that's probably a significant motivator. It's not going anywhere. You know, he was very proud of his Donald Duck comments the other night. I was like, really? Like your nickname is Krispy Kreme and Butterball. Those are your two, no. Well, that's literally like behind closed doors. That's what people called him for years. I'm like, those are your names, and like the best you can do is Donald Duck. I'm like, we're shaking in our boots now. You know, I like Donald Duck too, but my name's Donald, so it makes it a little, I guess I'm sitting there being like, it could be worse, but this is going to keep going. And what they're going to make sure they do, and why the Democrats are loving it, and why Joe Biden is posting Ron DeSantis clips, talking about inflation, is because they don't care. Those people, their consultants, they don't want Trump to win. Right? They want an illusion that the conservatives are fighting for this, but no. What they want is they want to be able to pick who's the next guy so they can represent them and make $50 million from their failed campaign. I knew Ron DeSantis' campaign wasn't going anywhere because I'd spent weeks with him. Like, I'd argue that there was probably no one that did more campaign events with Ron DeSantis in person in 2018 that wasn't a paid person than me. So I knew when they're seeing all the memes and the this, you know, it's like, oh, so you hired an influencer. I was like, just wait till they see him in long form. Meaning anyone can look like a badass in like a 5-second clip, and then you add in a bunch of special effects, and it's like you're dunking on some moron local reporter that doesn't know what they're talking about, and everyone gets paid to promote it and I go, just wait. No, seriously, give him the mic for 30 seconds. And you notice, the second he got the mic for more than 30 seconds, it was over, because he doesn't have that. Eventually, in this world, you got to be the guy up on that stage. You got to be the guy willing to do this, not the guy that sits there and can't answer the most obvious question of the debate. What do you think about the weaponization? Is it a big deal? The weaponization of our government against their political rivals? I don't know. Where are my consultants? Can we poll test this? Where are my donors? What with the billionaires that are funding my campaign because we have no small dollar operation because it's not real? Where are they on this issue? Remember that one from the first debate? Like fear. Where do I go? It's like a no-brainer. Like if you can't figure that out, like you shouldn't be making decisions for anyone. But that's what we're up against. That's the consultant class. That's the Washington elite. You know, they have almost as much disdain for hardworking Americans as the Democrats do. You know, Democrats, if you're a hardworking blue-collar American, so you're an idiot. Well, you know, you'll still get the UAW leadership vote because they've been bought and paid for by the workers' dues and given to the Democrat Party while they simultaneously take your job and your American dream and ship it to China for electric vehicles. But they're still going for it. You know, I think a lot of those voters, that's based on the, you know, and those workers who are union dues-paying members. You know, notice Trump got a lot more of those people than Joe Biden did. But it doesn't matter. They're literally giving a huge portion of their paycheck to the union that's giving it to Democrats who are literally destroying their very existence. And that's DC in a nutshell. That's what's going on. So we need to get back there, and we got to actually fight. And that's why they're going after Trump the way they are. They're going after my father the way they are now because they understand that he's the only guy that will actually do that. You know, everyone talks about it, right? We will bring peace to the Middle East. I was like, yeah, I don't know, I'm 45. I've been hearing that for 45 years, and it was going on for a long time before that. Why is Trump the only guy that could actually get it done? Same thing about Roe v. Wade, overturning that and getting people who will actually do it, not people that will be bullied into folding. Same thing with the embassy and moving it to Jerusalem. Remember that one? That was going to be the start of World War III. Why? Because incompetent bureaucrats who'd never accomplished anything said it would be. Right? And they tried instilling fear so we don't do something that we want. So we don't follow through on our promise. They put political pressure. The resolve it took to override that political pressure is not to be underestimated, okay? That's not easy, I get that. What ended up happening? It's like two people threw rocks for like 30 seconds, and it was over, and it was done. Finally, someone got a promise done. Right? North Korea. How? Trump is doing it all wrong. I remember watching the news for like 2 years, every morning. Trump's doing it all wrong in North Korea. And then, you know, they have their experts. I'm like, well, why are you an expert? Because I've been leading the delegation in fighting North Korea. Like, well, so what have you accomplished? Well, we have done a lot. Please, no, have you met with the guy? No, why would we do that? I mean, it's crazy. They can't even get in the room because they're incapable. They're morons. Okay? Our Secretary of State, who was given the job as a handout because he was the one that orchestrated getting 52 intelligence officers to sign off that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, Anthony Blinken, he became our Secretary of State. Not because he's good at what he does. He's obviously an imbecile, as evidenced by the results, but he was rewarded that position because he gathered those people to lie. to sway an election. Again, election interference seems to be a really big problem for the Democrats, but not when they're doing it. That's different. You know, when radical leftist activists take over courthouses in Seattle, Portland, when they storm Speaker McCarthy's office, that's not an insurrection. That's different. It's in the name of social justice or something. There's always an excuse. Okay? Blinken. The adults are back in charge, we were told, when these people took over, right? I remember after the botched Afghan withdrawal, our Secretary of State, sort of our biggest diplomat abroad, got on a world stage and before Congress and said he is shocked and dismayed that the Taliban, whom we'd been fighting for by 20 years, so we kind of know them by this point, you would think, but shocked and dismayed that the Taliban did not install a more diverse and inclusive government in Afghanistan. I was like, if you're dismayed, fine. Like, you're shocked? Did you think there was going to be like a trans coalition in the Taliban? Probably not, right? Probably. They weren't going to bring like Leah Thomas, the male swimmer who like won every NCAA record in swimming because he decided to become a Shia about 15 minutes before nationals, right? They're not probably giving that guy a seat at the table. This was a group of people that threw homosexuals off buildings for 20 years. We knew that. But we're shocked. They don't look at the idiocy of our politicians and mimic them. Like, we're shocked. Same people that left them $87 billion worth of equipment, the same people that want to ban you from having an AR-15, left the Taliban, like, what was it, 75,000 or something? M4 fully automatic machine guns and tanks and Humvees and like missiles, like, you know, whatever. You realize how far we've fallen when you see these things. I remember when that one was going on, I picked up my son from school. We're going to do a father-son dinner. He was 9, I think, 8 or 9 at the time. I guess he was 9. Hey, Dad, why would we leave the Taliban? 84, 86, whatever it was, $1 billion worth of equipment? It's a good question, son. I got nothing for you. Like, my son thought I was an idiot because he was like, what do you mean? Like, why on earth would we do? Hey, Dad, why did they pull out, like, our soldiers before, like, our civilians and, like, the people who helped us? I don't understand. It's like, that's a legitimate question, son. Yes, you're right. I don't know. I'm not going to be one of these woke, you know, when you see these people on TV, my 2-year-old spoke to me about nuclear proliferation on the Korean Peninsula, and they were shocked and dismayed. You know, like, he didn't know what biometric was, but he knew that we had left them machines that could scan, you know, like when we go through, you know, clear or something like that. Yeah, then he didn't know what the word biometric was, but he knew that we left the Taliban, who'd we been at war with for 20 years, machines that could scan and figure out who was bad and who was on our side and who was good, and we gave that to the people who they were at war with for 20 years, and he couldn't believe it. My 9-year-old understood this, and the adults that were back in charge didn't. So, it's pretty simple, guys. We need to get together. We need to fight back. We need to say enough is enough. And we need to be unafraid. Because if you think it's bad now, just wait. Just give these guys the time. They've shown everything's on the table, right? I mean, it's not like, oh, they just want to limit a little bit of your Second Amendment. They'd get rid of it entirely. But it's not just the Second Amendment. If you've been watching, your First Amendment's on the table. And it has been for a long time. By the way, all of this stuff has probably been going on, but Trump derangement syndrome made them say the quiet parts out loud, finally. Okay? I imagine we'd fallen much further than any one of us could have ever understood. You know what may have been our saving grace? Probably COVID. Because the same teachers that wanted to shut down our schools, the same people that would label concerned parents domestic terrorists, they had to teach from computers. And parents could walk by and be like, you're learning what? You know, schools that are graduating classes of people that have zero proficiency in English, zero proficiency in math. You know, there was There was a solid couple hours of the trans curriculum every week. It may be one of the great cell phones of our time, because now people finally understand what's probably been going on much longer than we could ever believe or imagine. But now that we know that, okay, we got to stop turning the other cheek. We got to stop living and let live. These people would end us. They would throw you each in the gulags. If you're in this room right now, you're on a list. It's not just me. I'm on every list. Just by being in this room, you're on some. And I'm not saying that jokingly. But that's how far it's come. So it's great to see this. It's great to see what Christian has done with the Texas Youth Summit. I love that they're working with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, because that's what we need to do. We see that so much. Well, I just want to control faction, and this is my little power play. No, we got to get together and we got to fight, because the enemy that we are up against is truly sick. It's truly deranged, and we need to fight for what is right, and we must never, ever relent. So Texas, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Just please stay in the game, okay? Thank you, guys.
Everyone, I thought it would be appropriate that we would do something different tonight, and we would pray for our country and pray for Don and his family. What do you think?
We need it. Thank you, guys.
So if it's your tradition, maybe you would extend your hand, or whatever you feel comfortable with, but let's pray for Don and his family. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the blood of Jesus. That is why we were saved. Thank you for our country and for the founding and for all of those that are fighting to save and preserve our country. Thank you for President Donald Trump and giving him to us. He's worked so hard to save our country, the greatest president of our lifetime, and he takes so many bullets for us. His whole family's relentlessly attacked on every single level, and everyone associated with him. I pray that you would continue to bless President Trump and restore their family. And I pray for Don, and I thank you for the gift. I know he must be so proud of his family. That's his greatest treasure is his family. They're such a blessing. So God, I just pray that you would restore their family and open up new doors and opportunity and put a hedge of protection around them in this upcoming season. I pray everyone that's attacking them on the right and on the left, I pray that would just be water off of a duck's back. I pray that no weapon formed against them would prosper. We pray that you would make America that shining city on a hill, as Ronald Reagan referred to once again, and that it would be morning in America again. We pray this in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, guys.
Good job, man.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. Glad you guys are working. That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Gallegos, and I am the founder and president of Turning Point USA at Wichita State University in Kansas. I was asked to speak here tonight to tell you how Turning Point USA and the Texas Youth Summit have changed my life, and I'm hoping that sharing my story and hearing about it can do the same for you. As a college freshman in 2020, I attended my first Texas Youth Summit. It was so exciting to see so many other young conservatives like myself and to hear inspiring words from leaders in the movement like Morgan Zegers and Charlie Kirk. I left the event energized and wanting to get involved in the conservative movement, but probably like many of you, I wasn't really sure where to start. I reached out to Turning Point through their online forum, and a week later I was contacted by a field rep asking me if I wanted to start a chapter at my university. I said yes, and we slowly got the ball rolling. I had already joined the Student Government Association, where left-wing students and faculty surrounded me. I had even been placed on the Diversity, Empowerment, and Inclusion Committee simply because of my last name. But like so many other conservatives, I hid my beliefs out of fear of retaliation. Then March 2021 rolled around. I highlighted Morgan Zegers, the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism and Turning Point USA contributor for the DEI Committee's Women's History Month post. Within a week, students were calling for my resignation and removal from SGA. One student went as far as to make a 2-hour YouTube video threatening me to the point that the police were involved. I was 18 years old, states away from home, and absolutely terrified. I was at my breaking point when something remarkable happened. Those silent conservatives, well, they started speaking up and reaching out. Newspapers, radio shows, and other media outlets reported on the backlash I received, and support grew. I received friend requests and messages from people all across the country. Lawyers even offered to file a case on my behalf pro bono. Community members and alumni also flooded the university with calls, pulling their donations. Throughout this entire ordeal, Turning Point USA and Morgan had my back. Their unwavering support gave me the strength to keep fighting and stand up for my values. Today, I am the founder and president of the largest Turning Point chapter in both Kansas and Oklahoma. I was even elected as student body president during my junior year at WSU. I've appeared on radio shows and podcasts, and my story has been featured everywhere from MSN to Fox News. I've spoken at various Republican events and interned for Senator Molly Baumgardner in the Kansas legislature. I've even had the amazing opportunity to meet conservative icons like Mike Pompeo, Mark Meadows, and Ted Cruz. And now I'm back where it all started, the turning point in my life at the Texas Youth Summit, speaking on stage between Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk. This entire experience is honestly super surreal to me, and I could not be any more grateful. I have had the most amazing 3 years of my life, and I owe it all to Christian Collins and Charlie Kirk. I encourage everyone out there to start a Turning Point chapter or join one at your local high school or university. If you're not sure where to get started, feel free to reach out and follow me at Olivia G. Gallegos. Thank you.
Are y'all having fun? God bless Texas, amen? Well, Charlie Kirk needs no introduction. We all know who he is. And so he's built an amazing movement, and it's growing every single year. And we're just so thrilled to get to work with Charlie Kirk, right? He's growing Turning Point Faith, Turning Point Action, and Turning Point USA, and chapters are growing all throughout the state, all throughout the country. And so if you're here, my encouragement, if you're listening online, my encouragement is that you would start a Turning Point USA chapter or join one that already exists. Let's make that happen. So there will be a video play, but let's give it up for Charlie Kirk one more time.
Trust the government, and almost always they say, no, the government's bought by lobbyists and corporations and by the war machine. I say, why on earth would you want to make that government bigger?
We're the least racist country ever to exist in the history of the world.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA.
And every bad idea that is permeating our society originates from a college campus. There's a crisis happening right now in higher education where students are being taught to hate our country.
We as Americans must understand that it's a gift we get to live in the United States of America, a gift from God.
Great to be here, everybody. I'm going to speak for a little bit, and then we're going to do questions. That's the most fun. So get your hardest question that you have. All right? Great to be here. Christian, you've done a great job. Honored to be partnering with you here at the Texas Youth Summit. Every single one of you, you need to start a Turning Point USA chapter right now, or maybe you're already involved. Who here is already running Turning Point USA chapters here? I saw some of you guys earlier. Love it. It is the most important thing you can do to help save the republic and save the country. So there's a lot we could talk about here tonight. And I thought that the most important thing I could tell you is you need to commit and be clear to what worldview that you are viewing everything through. It's the most important question a young person can answer. So the way you view the news, oh, is my mic not working? Is that better? Ah, good. Thank you. The way you view the news, the way you view your relationships, the way that you view everything comes through a worldview. And that worldview is going to instruct not just how you vote, but if you end up getting married, how you relate to other people. And so a typical worldview that you would find in government school, and maybe some of you here tonight have this worldview, is I don't really know where I fit. I think that everything, live and let live, do whatever I want to do. There's left-wing worldviews, which is I don't want to work and I want to complain all day long and get stuff for free. There are, atheist worldviews, which there is not a God and there's no reason for our existence. Or there's the most important and the true worldview, which is a biblical worldview. Now, a biblical worldview means that, first of all, you believe there is a God and you are not him. Two pretty important things. You believe that you're made in the image of God, that you're here for a purpose, and that every single human life has inherent value, that you have a soul. You're not just a clump of cells that has come into being through allegedly millions of years of Darwinian evolution. Now, some of you might say, Charlie, I don't know what my worldview is, and that's okay. But as you grow older, every way that you view the news, everything comes from this question of the lens of your worldview. Now let's kind of look at how the media wants you to think. By what worldview do they actually prescribe for you? There's these fake religious worldviews that have come forward. The first of which is one that has permeated our society and that is one of the most treacherous, which is the live and let live, or who am I to judge, or I can do whatever I want. I visit college campuses, so many of you don't have to, but I guess we're talking to mostly a younger audience, so you know of what I speak. And when I talk to some of these younger activists, they'll tell me, Charlie, it doesn't matter. Everyone can do whatever is right in their own eyes, and morality is in somebody's own personal opinion. Subjective morality. Now, some of you might agree with that. It's actually a dreadfully awful idea. You need objective morality to be able to design and construct an entire society. For example, if somebody says that murder is okay, and they think it's okay, and somebody disagrees, well, who wins? It's a question of the will. It's a question of power. And so, as you view your own decisions, and you view your place in the world, you must be able to answer some very specific and some very basic questions. The most important of which is, where do you get right and wrong from? This is a very interesting question that most young people can't answer. They will say, well, murder is wrong and stealing is wrong. Why do you believe that? Where do you get that from? And they'll say, well, it's inherent. And most people know that, and that is not true. People naturally do not know good or evil. You might have a little bit of a conscience built into you, maybe, but we know this from the scriptures. We know this, that God had to reveal his law to his people and teach it repeatedly because we're inherently broken and fallen people. Said differently, that absent a belief in God, people do not believe in nothing, they will believe in anything. For example, they'll believe men can give birth, which many of you might laugh at. This is what's taught on many college campuses across the country. Now, you didn't have me come here tonight to tell the happy talk. Let me speak very plainly about the trans agenda that is spreading in this country. That the trans agenda is one of the most dangerous, deceitful, and evil things happening in America today, targeting your generation. God created man, God created female, that's it. End of story. There are, somebody asked me, they say, how many genders are there? You want a real thought crime? How many genders? I say 0. Gender is a made-up word. We only started using gender in the 1960s or 70s. There are 2 sexes. Do you notice how they don't say transsexual? They say transgender. That's been a word game they've played with all of us. So gender, you should just completely reject. There are 2 sexes. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how much makeup you put on, you try to wear a dress, you try to pretend something that you are not, you don't cease being the biological or chromosomal makeup of how you were born. You remain a man or you remain a woman. And this is why the worldview matters. Because someone would say, but I feel like a woman. I feel like a man. Your feelings are completely irrelevant to the truth. Completely irrelevant. Now, somebody might say, well, Charlie, what does that mean? Do you want to, use power? Look, people can be delusional when you're in your own living room. You can wear a dress. It's kind of creepy or weird. But why do you want to make me have to believe the lie? Force me to use your pronouns. To force me to allow you into the female locker rooms. Like, that's really pervy and weird, actually. To force us to have to then teach it in our schools. And this is not something that's naturally occurring. If I could just communicate this as plainly as possible, this is a social contagion. That kids are saying they're trans because they think it's cool. And some of you might say, oh no, come on, my friend, they really have thought that they're a boy since they're 8 years old. Yeah, they've been lying to themselves since they were 8 years old. And instead of saying, let's go chop off your breasts, or give you a double mastectomy, or put you on Lupron, we should love that person enough to tell them the truth and not affirm the lie that they're going to keep on living, that there's something that they are not. But it's even worse than that. Because so many of you, if you just repeated what I would just say, you would have teachers, administrators, supervisors, friends, and other parents call you a hater. Say that you are not compassionate. And this is a trick that they use all the time. And this is why worldview matters so much. You remove a biblical Christian worldview, which is what the entire Western society is built on, then you all of a sudden start believing in the wackiest, weirdest stuff imaginable. This is a real example. This is not some sort of fringe thing. You go to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control website, right now, under the Biden regime, and they say, people that give birth. Birthing people, not women. They go to the Center for Disease Control website. They say that not breastfeeding, chest feeding. The CDC has now said it's perfectly okay for a biological man to be able to take lactating drugs to chest feed a baby. Just so we're clear, that will give that baby heart problems and potentially kill the baby. Just so we're clear. And so our own government is saying that the ideology of this radical trans zealotry matters more than protecting a baby's life. This is what happens when you do not have a structured worldview. And it's okay if you're here today and you say, I'm not sure what I believe, and I'm not sure. Everybody will end up believing from some book, some piece of literature, some piece of art, some influencer. The younger you identify where you get your worldview from, the better. And here's what always confuses the secularists or the Marxists. You put them on defense and say, where do you get good versus evil? Where do you get holy versus profane? Where do you get these distinctions? And they can never answer it. They say, it's just inherent. And this is what is so critically important. As America becomes less godly, which we are losing the idea of God in America very quickly. We become less free. You cannot have a free society and also have a godless society. They will replace it with a big government that comes in and says that we're going to solve all of your problems. And it's going to require you, an entire generation of young people, to stand up for truth, for righteousness, and courage, even when it is difficult. I guarantee you, someone's going to come ask a question, but Charlie, I'm going to be graded differently and kicked out of class and called names and smeared and slandered. How many of you think you would be graded down if you came out as a conservative against the trans agenda? Raise your hand. Anybody? About half the hands. The rest of you are homeschooled, so it doesn't count. So you should not care is the answer. If they will grade you differently, if they will kick you out of class, it is always the right decision to stand for truth with courage, regardless of the cost. The younger the age you commit to that, the sooner you say, I don't care what they take from me, I will stand for righteousness, the freer you will actually be. What the bad guys are very good at is weaponizing name-calling against you. Now, there's some very interesting things happening right now generationally. Most of you, almost all of you, are Generation Z. So let me take this piece by piece. At Turning Point USA, we have an amazing high school outreach department. We have an amazing college outreach department. And we're seeing some trends that are also fitting with some of the data that we're seeing nationwide. Did you know that Gen Z's men are the most conservative young men in nearly 50 years? 50 years. Now, I'm going to tell you why, and also tell you, young ladies, you guys are a disaster compared to the men. I'm sorry. Now, I'm glad you're here. We need more of you. But I'm sure you agree that many of your female friends are not exactly, let's say, MAGA, right? Not exactly. Let's start with men. This is very promising. There is a war on men in America today, unlike anything we've ever seen. They are trying to turn men into women, literally. They're trying to have young men be addicted to pornography, smoking weed, staying in their basement. Now, one of the ways that you could do that is to never smoke weed. It's really bad for you. Never watch pornography. It will destroy your soul and crush your brain, and save yourself for marriage. That's the true way to be a rebel in America. But there's something else where young men are starting to see the entire culture is against them. That from toxic masculinity to this idea that everything that a man might want to do, from owning a firearm to going hunting or fishing, is against the correct American values. And young boys becoming men are looking for any sort of movement to attach themselves to. And whether it be watching Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson or anybody out there that says, you know what? Not only is it okay to be a man, we need strong men. It's a great thing to be a strong, confident, courageous man. And if you want to take over a country, you have the men start disengaging from society. If you neuter that society literally. You keep the young boys afraid of their own shadow, that they'll be accused of sexual harassment because they say something to a young lady that might have been deemed as offensive. And I'm going to talk to the young ladies here, okay? Which is not going to go over very well, but that's fine. I'll get that in a second. It actually should go over fine, but be open-minded. But I'll say this when it comes to young men, which is, some of you might say, Charlie wants us to be strong, manly men. And you think you could come out like you're Rambo. You know, easy. Being a man in America, that masculine figure, means you're going to stand up for the innocent. It means you're going to stand up for people who can't protect themselves. It means that you're going to have your head on the swivel for someone that is not as strong as you, where you can intervene when something evil is happening. It means that you're going to stand up for the kid at lunch who's getting picked on unnecessarily because he talks funny, or the young girl that gets picked on. Your job as a man is to have enough spine and some other anatomy. To look the bully in the eye and kick them out of the conversation. Being a man is not about like taking, protein shakes and bench press. That's all fine. You should do that. Get your testosterone rates up. Stop eating Impossible Burgers. It's awful for you. Veganism is from Satan. Like, it's really bad. Okay? So don't do that. Don't. Men, have zero soy in your diet ever. Okay? Oh, that's fine. But a man in America is not about sleeping with as many women as you can. Those are boys. Those are grown infants. Oh, I have a body count. You have no self-control. You're no better than a rabbit is what you are. My body count. Nothing more than a lost boy. You impress nobody by going around with that. Zero people. You know what a true man does is he waits for his soulmate and he acts in a way where he says no to the immediate pleasure. He doesn't stay out till 2 a.m. drinking into the night. He doesn't play video games. Yeah, sorry, thought crime. It's not making you tough or cool to play Call of Duty. Like, no, sorry. Nobody cares. But Charlie, I'm bored. Go find something interesting. Life is great. It's a lot better than staring at a screen with a bunch of buttons. But it improves my hand-eye coordination. No, it doesn't, okay? You're a loser. I told you I'm not the happy talk guy. You'll get that later. All right. But young men, the last thing I'll say is this, is that if you're here and you're depressed and you say, I feel things are against you, snap out of it. There's a great life ahead of you. You need a challenge in your life. You need a Genesis 12 moment when Abram leaves his father's home and to go on an adventure. You need to say no to the easy stuff. Young men in America are nowhere nearly as challenged as they should be. We pander to young boys and say, it's okay if you sit on your phone all day long. It's fine. I mean, pornography is normal. It's fine. There's nothing normal about it, actually. It's the first generation ever that has these like weird construed like fantasies when it comes. And we wonder why so many kids aren't getting married and they're killing themselves. It's a disaster. And so for my message to young men is there's a journey and there's a challenge out there that is beyond your wildest imagination. But it's going to start with you saying no to the easy stuff. The stuff that makes you feel really good very quickly is the stuff that you must say no to. Weed, alcohol, porn is a great place to start. Okay, now to the young ladies. Totally different thing. Okay. Now, in case you didn't know, I identify as a man, so my identification means nothing. It's the truth that matters. So here's what I'll say with young ladies, okay? Think about the way to say this so I don't get in trouble. Oh, you should see the emails I get if I have one word. Okay, young women, stop acting like men. Now you might say, oh, I don't act like a man. I don't act like a man. Fine. You have to answer this one question. Would you rather have a great career or a family? You have to answer that question tonight. And you say, I want both. Wrong. Answer it. Pick one. Career, family. And that doesn't mean you can't potentially have both, but you have to answer it tonight. And if you say, I want to be a boss babe, I want to have a career, that's fine. You'll probably end up 33 years old, single, with cats, in an apartment, and a degree from Rice. Charlie, that's mean. I can do it all because of all these social media influencers. Maybe. Or maybe all the good ones are gone and men don't want to marry you once you get in your early 30s. They don't. Great. There's exceptions to every rule. Didn't even hear all that, but sure, great. This is the tough love you need, everybody. Young ladies, I'm here to tell you tonight, the number one email I get from young listeners are young women in their 30s grieving that they put their career first, that they bought the lie to go get the piece of paper, to go make partner at the law firm, to go get the master's degree. And they said, oh, I can get married later, I can get married later, I can get married later, I can get married later. And they are 37 and they say, well, I'm ready to get married. And the young men who finally, they get mature around like age 33, right? They're gonna go marry a 23-year-old. They're like, I'm not gonna do that. Are you kidding me? A Catwoman? No way, not doing that. You might say, Charlie, that's so mean, it's so wrong. No, it's a fact, is what it is. And what is happening in America is we, for the first time ever, have more single young women in their early 30s than married young women in their early 30s. And they're very, very angry. It's not a joke, it's not a prognostication, it's not a guess. Is that they're understandably bitter because they've done everything that they said they're supposed to do. And then they want the thing that God programmed you to want more than anything else. And here's the thought crime. Any sort of young woman who tells me I don't want a family, I think you're lying to me. I think deep down, you actually want to get married and have a manly man take care of the family and provide. And I think deep down, you actually want to have kids. I think deep down, you want a culture that says you don't have to go get the master's degree just to be acceptable as a female in America. The most important role in America is a loyally married wife raising children for God. That's the most important role in America. Not some sort of corporate banker for Goldman Sachs. Oh, I work at Google, I earn $400,000 a year. Great, nobody cares. Why is the country falling apart? Because you have a bunch of boss babes that don't take marriage and raising kids seriously. We need to tell women, not only is it okay, you are commanded to do this. And having a 1-year-old, I am completely ill-equipped to do this as a man. That should be a lot funnier than it is. I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to raising an infant. You'll understand at some point, okay? My wife swoops in and it's like a whole different dimension of activity I've never seen before. Soothing the baby, feeding the baby. Men and women are different. And the lie of the trans agenda, the lie of one of these worldviews is that you do not have, men can replace women and women can replace men. That is a bunch of trash. It's a bunch of nonsense. Do you know that the countries around the world where quote unquote gender equality has reached has the most unhappy women? All across the world. That when women have to force themselves into an overly corporatized environment, and some young ladies might come here and they might say, Charlie, but I want to be this and I want to be that. That's fine. Go achieve your dreams, take a risk, go do all that. But you also must be comfortable not getting that. Okay, so let me close with this. The most important decision that you can make is to Almighty God, is to giving your life to Jesus Christ. Every single one of you is going to have to make that decision. Here's the way I can ask the question. Who is Jesus Christ? Was Jesus a historical figure? Was he an author? Was he a thinker? Or was Jesus the Son of God? The answer to that question is the most important question that you will have to answer. It will determine your eternity. The gospel in 4 words, Jesus took my place. The gospel in 3 words, him for me. The gospel for 2 words, substitutionary atonement. The gospel in 1 word, grace. What is grace? Justice is getting what you deserve. We all deserve hell because we are all sinners. Mercy is getting less of what you deserve, so a reduced prison sentence. Grace is when you go to the judge and he sentences you to hell, and the moment you're about to get there, somebody steps up and says, he is free because I served that prison sentence for them. You do not earn heaven. You do not do points to get into heaven. It is a gift from above because Jesus died for you so that you could live forever. You give your life for Christ. It's the most important decision you can make. With that, let's do some questions, and God bless you guys. Thanks for sitting through that. Thank you. Did I offend too many people? Was that a little? All right, I really don't care if I did, but that's fine. Yeah.
Hi, Charlie. Thank you for coming to speak with us tonight. My name is Heike, and I go to Baylor University in Waco, Texas, Sikkim Bears. This question is actually about your wife, Erica. Congratulations on your first child, by the way. That's a blessing. You're a busy guy traveling around the country, trying to fight pervasiveness and immorality, and I wanted to know what role your wife Erica plays in your professional life and in the contribution to your ability to continue what you do professionally, and what single women can do now to prepare for that role.
Well, beautiful question. I have the best wife on the planet, and she does not have an easy job being married to me. Constant fights, constant pressure, constant death threats, right? Constant people trying to hunt us down, and murder us. Not an exaggeration, by the way. And she's as tough as nails. She loves it. And she prays for us. She covers the family spiritually. The role of the woman, the wife, is to make sure that the home is sacred and holy. I'm out hunting, I'm out fighting, and I come home and everything is not just pristine in the visual, but it's a place where the battle-worn can come to have that spiritual solace to be refilled. And by the way, she has her own fights too. She runs Bible in 365, Proclaim Streetwear. You guys should all be, follow her. And she's also the most beautiful person, out of 7 billion people, if I may say so much. If you disagree, you're wrong. But Erica, more than anything else, which is so hard to find, is that she's a fighter. And she does not get intimidated by all the satanic crap that gets thrown at us. In fact, she is so spiritually disciplined. She is so well read on the scriptures. She's like, oh, that's an attack from the enemy. That's an unclean spirit. We need to get our spiritual disciplines right. And the wife, if you get into a marriage and the husband's working and all this, you have to understand that when he comes back, being a Proverbs 31 woman is part of knowing the scriptures, knowing the spiritual warfare, submitting to your husband. And by the way, the second part of the verse is never talked about. And the husband has to submit the same way under Christ, just so we're clear. And that's a hard thing for some people to grasp. And we have a beautiful marriage. I'm so thankful. She's the best mom ever, but she's a fighter. And young ladies, fight for your man, because so many women will turn their back on their man when things get tough or fragile and they don't necessarily have that spine. If you're spiritually oriented in the scriptures correctly, then you'll be ready for battle, as it says in Ephesians, and put the full armor of God on. Thank you. Yes, sir. The hardest questions you guys have, by the way. Yes.
Hello, sir. My name is Joseph Damari, and we all live in America, and one of the defining qualities that's kind of been tied with the American identity is freedom. But we often forget to ask, what is freedom? And I have my own thoughts on it, but I'd like to hear your opinion on what is freedom.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if you guys could hear that. The question is, what is freedom? It's a really important question. So I'm going to use the word liberty instead, if that's okay. They're synonyms, but they're not exactly the same thing. So here's a good question for you guys. Is it in the spirit of the founding fathers of liberty that you can do heroin on the side of the street? Yes, no, but it's freedom, right? Do what you want. Second question, is it in the spirit of the founding fathers for dressed up men to go dance in front of children at local libraries and call it a drag queen story hour? So the question then, it's not necessarily about doing whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, is that liberty or freedom must point to something virtuous. It is a means to a moral end. Liberty is doing the ability to be able to do what you ought to do. And yes, that means you must make truth claims. You see, the secular left, or even some people in the conservative movement that need to be kicked out of the conservative movement, they'll say, well, who am I to judge if some guy wants to go dance in front of children in a thong? We should judge those people. If you want to go do drag queen story hour, thank you, and try to manipulate children. So freedom is not doing whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. Freedom or liberty is the ability to do the right thing without government getting in the way. Thank you so much.
Hi, Charlie. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. So, historically, governments have taken into account the fact that whoever controls the culture controls the people. They've used the musical arts accordingly. It's obvious in Western society today that the left is using messaging in popular music to push their radical ideologies. What are your thoughts on how conservative musicians from all genres can gain the support needed to push back and promote music with normal conservative values?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So I can't stand Taylor Swift, for example. Total waste of time. If any of you like Taylor Swift, you should stop supporting Taylor Swift. So, and I know some of you are ready to like throw something at me. Look, she's an awful role model for young women, okay? You want to talk about a body count. Woo! Holy moly. So she's terrible. She complains all the time. I don't think her music's that good, but that's not the point. That's a little bit mean, but it's not good. But music, think about, I mean, she's supposed to be like the virtuous one in the American music, let's say, library, right? I mean, it goes from like Taylor Swift, who's supposed to be like the easy one to listen to, the family friendly. And then, I mean, you go like Ariana Grande, Nicki Minaj, not exactly pursuing virtue, right? Yeah, I'm gonna not express my opinions on country music because that will definitely get me kicked off the stage. But I will say that reading the lyrics of country music sometimes can be redeemable. The noise of country music drives me nuts, but that's a separate issue. So I know you're gonna, I'm from Chicago, can't stand it, it's awful, but that's a separate issue. But what creates good art? Let's agree on something, okay? Art means to point at something. Art is not your own personal opinion. So for example, at the Guggenheim or whatever, one of these, hoity-toity places, they have this new piece of art, that's a black screen. And they call it Toronto at Night. And here's my general rule of thumb. If I can do it, it's not art, okay? Or someone that like signs a urinal, okay? That's a real thing. Start in 1920s. So how do we get music better in alignment? It's a really important question. So Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, they all wrote the same thing at the top of all of their composers. Glory be to God. All their music pointed towards the divine. One of the reasons why our art is just so awful is because what are we pointing towards? We're pointing, this is why Taylor Swift's music is steaming hot garbage. It's all about herself. It's not pointing towards anything. I broke up with my boyfriend. Okay, like that's weaponized narcissism with like chords. How about you talk about something above yourself? And this is the problem with Western art, is everyone thinks about your feelings, yourself. The greatest artistic achievements were when the artist decided to take themselves out of the picture and they looked at something that they wondered at. As Aristotle would say, wonder is the beginning of philosophy. And so how do we reclaim the arts of the music? We have to support creators, but more importantly, we have to get our philosophy right. Ask the question, who are you glorifying with this practice? To whom are you dedicating it? And from there, we'll start to get, hopefully, more morally redeemable and beautiful art. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next question.
Good evening, Mr. Kirk. I'm Nick Walker, president of tvUSA at Sam Houston.
See, you should all be a Turning Point chapter leader. Love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and we're making a lot of difference. My question for you, sir, is what advice would you have for young activists?
Oh boy. Stay engaged, do not allow the bad guys with their weaponized name calling to get you down. And honestly, reach out for as much mentorship and help as you can from the older generation. We have an amazing audience on the Charlie Kirk Show, and so many people email us saying, Charlie, I wish I could be a mentor. I wish I could help. And so that would be my advice, is reach out for advice, reach out for support from the amazing patriots, in Harris and Montgomery County that want to be able to support you, and stay involved with Turning Point USA. If you stay involved with Turning Point, we have members of Congress, state reps. Turning Point USA is jet fuel on somebody's political career. God bless you, man. Thank you.
Sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Danelli Rios, and I attend YWLA in Aldine, and I have a lot of friends that they identify as transgender, and I am trying to, I guess, kind of like convert them. And I would like to know how to combat it and how to try to convert them, pretty much.
First of all, you have a really sweet way about you, and so you're going to be a lot more successful than I would be. Let me just put it that way. it would not go well for me. So let me just give you some advice, because you have a really, really good way. I would basically be like, stop being something you're not, and I'd probably get expelled from the school or something. So here's what I would do. I would try to find resources or help that do not affirm them. This idea of affirmation is so clinically unsubstantiated. I want you to imagine if you go to any sort of medical environment and you have something wrong with you and they affirm it. Like, do we do a depression affirming care? Or like cancer affirming care? Or like tumor affirming care? Like, these people have something wrong with them and they need to find help. So that's what I would do. And then I would just love on them. Love on them how Christ would. But that does not mean to affirm the sin. So this is one of my favorite passages in the entire Bible, is John 8, which is quoted all the time by the weak Christians, right? Where they'll say, let the first among you cast the first stone. But they don't tell you the end of the story when Christ goes up to the young woman, the prostitute, and he says, sin no more. How many times do we do that second part? Where we say, okay, yeah, no one is the judge, but do we tell people to stop sinning? So just love on them, tell them the truth, be compassionate, loving, kind, pray for them, but do not make excuses for them living in error for who they really are, because they're living a lie. God bless you. Thank you.
Okay, so I have two questions, kind of. So one is, real quick, are you familiar with G.K. Chesterton?
Very, yeah, I quoted him earlier.
Okay. So I really admire his view of like society and how it should be structured, and the like, specifically in his view of economics.
You got to get to the question. I'm running out of time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What do you think of G.K. Chesterton's view of economics?
I mean, I would imagine he believed economics is a means to an end, right? That economics is not the end, but it's a means to a flourishing society. Am I probably right about that?
Yeah, he believed in a lot of and in kind of a welfare, but with a very Christian viewpoint.
So yeah, I'm not as on board for that, but yeah, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just to expand that, I believe in charity, not welfare. Charity is for people that need help and need support, but people game the system and they create entire lives of living off the government when they're able-bodied and they could work, and we shouldn't put up with that. Thank you. Yes. If it's okay, I'll go another 10 minutes, guys, if you're willing to sit through it. So yes, okay.
Good evening, Charlie. My name is Byron Waring. I go to Alpha Omega Academy in Huntsville, Texas.
Very good.
It is a moderately large Christian private school, and it's wonderful. My question for you this evening is this. What would you say to young men who don't necessarily want a wife or children or to extend their family?
Yeah, they're wrong.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Read the Bible. Be fruitful and multiply. Get a wife. And so this is a very important question. This is a really good, I'm not even making fun of you. It is worse for society for men to be alone than for women to be alone.
I agree.
Think about it. It is not good for man to be alone. Think about this. Adam had God. And even though he had God, it was not enough. He needed a partner. And so, yeah, men should go get married, and that sort of thinking is exactly one of the reasons why we have the moral crisis that we have. So, thank you. I guess we can only take one more. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Kirk. I just wanted to thank you for being a massive influence in my life.
Thank you.
It's inspired me to, at the age of 21, run against Cecil Bell Jr. here in Texas House District 3.
Praise God. Great.
Thank you. So, my question goes along with the lines of, I go to the clubs, I get to meet the big wigs here in Montgomery County, but I'm like a mythical creature to them. They like my ideas, but they'll never repeat them to their friends. So how do we, as young conservatives, get the old guard to recognize us and actually take us seriously?
It's going to be a challenge you're going to have, right? Which they inherently don't listen as carefully because they think you're young, but also use it to your advantage. You talk to a lot of the patriots in this room, they'll tell you that they are desiring for younger blood in the GOP. And so while there is opposition, I believe and I think you guys would agree, there's twice as much potential support for being a younger voice than there might be opposition. You're going to have to fight through that, which means you're going to have to dress in a suit and tie to anywhere you go when you're running for office. Not a joke. Do not give them an excuse as a young person to say you're not taking it seriously. You must show up early to every meeting. You must say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You must remember names. You're going to be held to a higher standard is what I'm saying, right? But then if they see that you're a young man and you're dressing well and you show up on time and you write thank you cards and you are a gentleman, then they'll have no reason not to take what you say seriously. All right? Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, just one more. Sorry, yes. You will be the final question.
Okay, thank you for letting me ask it. So I want to thank you for what you said to young women earlier. As a fourth-year medical student, I'm already pretty invested into my career. This is something that I've kind of been awoken to a little bit later. I'm surrounded by people in their 30s, women especially. We cry, how do we have families? How do we have kids? We have all these jobs working 80 hours a week. What advice do you have to those young women?
To career, yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, you have a great way about you, and you're asking the right question. You're going to have to pray to God. I don't know if you're a Christian or not, but I don't want to give you specific advice, but here's the fact, is that, Houston has one of the most incredibly impressive medical networks in the country, so this is probably not an isolated phenomenon, right?
Not at all.
To go through residency, it's very hard to go through residency and also be married and have a child. And the uncomfortable truth is you're probably going to have to choose. And you might say, but I could do both. Maybe you can. I'm telling you, I get a lot of messages from 37-year-old nurses that are freaking out, right? And I feel bad for them. I have a heart for them. So I don't really know what to tell you. My advice is you have to know what you want most, and then you should prioritize that. But obviously, I bet you have a lot of medical debt, a lot of education debt too, right? So
yeah, I actually signed a contract for 14 years with the military, so I can't get out at this point.
Well, we serve an almighty God, and so, but look, the sooner that you say, this is what I want, more than that, that's a good thing, right? Don't delay, don't punt on it. So, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, in closing, everybody, if you guys would do me a favor, we do 3 podcasts a day. If you would subscribe to our podcast, The Charlie Kirk Show, it's always from a biblical, pro-conservative, hard-hitting approach. You guys all have phones. I know you do. So if you take out whatever podcast app you have, Apple, oh yeah, there it is right there. So yeah, I was 30 pounds heavier in that picture. So that's what happens when you have a child and eat lots of carbohydrates. So you follow the QR code. I would deeply appreciate it. You hit the subscribe if it's an Apple iPhone. It's follow in the upper right-hand corner. Android, you weird people, you guys could figure out how to do that. I'm kidding. All right, in closing, get your life right with Christ. Know what worldview that you are following. And this generation, Generation Z, it's going to be up to you guys. I'm millennial, so I'm now passing the baton to you guys in some ways. And I believe firmly, those of you that decide to get involved with Turning Point USA, start a high school chapter, start a college chapter, we have all of our booths outside. I want you guys to bum rush that table, sign up, it will change your life. If I said something, it's like, boy, I want that purpose, I want that meaning, we can help you guys at Turning Point USA, the biggest events, the most impactful type of stuff on the ground. And look, we live in a great country, everybody. Praise God, we live in America. It's going to be up to us together to save it. God bless you guys, and thanks for having us tonight. Thank you.
Hey Hey Texas Youth Summit, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert here, and I wish I could be there with you this weekend for what I know will be a fantastic 2 days of speakers and panels hosted by my great and dear friend Christian Collins. Christian, thank you for putting on such an enthusiastic and engaging experience. Once again, it was wonderful to be in person there in Texas with y'all last year, and I certainly hope to be there next year, but currently I am working in Washington, D.C., fighting for the conservative values I promised Coloradans and the American people I would stand up for. So many people campaign one way and govern another. So I have to be here to ensure that we are actually governing as the American people intended we would in this majority that they so graciously entrusted us with. It may take more work and hours than we hoped it would, but I'm committed to cutting our federal spending, holding the Biden administration accountable, and delivering on the promises that I've made. I will not back down. I have proven that I am a fighter. I will always speak up for you. I know there are many of you in this room who can't necessarily vote for me, but in Washington, D.C., myself and many other colleagues throughout our nation are voting for you on a regular basis. Now, before we dive into things, I do want to make sure that you hear something directly from me as well. It has been kind of a difficult and certainly a humbling past few weeks for me in ways I had not anticipated, and certainly I'm not proud of. I want you to know that I am truly sorry for my actions and any burdens that may have been caused towards you. In my position, it's all about levity and gravity. I am here to ensure that gravity is not placed on any of you, the American people, that every decision I make brings levity and alleviates the burdens in your life. And so I'm asking for forgiveness and grace as I work to rebuild trust. I've worked hard since stepping into the political arena to inspire and motivate young conservatives just like you all across the nation. But in an evening of weakness, I guess you could say, I let you down. I've certainly learned some humbling lessons, and I hope that there's a silver lining from some of this ordeal. And I hope that that silver lining is that you'll see that we all have our shortcomings and understand how important it is to always, always keep your eye on Jesus, no matter what may test you. But in the event that you or myself may stumble, know that He is there to pick you up, put you back on your feet, lead and guide you into all truth. I have spent years of my life ministering to troubled women and telling them the importance of mercy, grace, and forgiveness, redemption, personally introducing women to the God who could turn their shame into glory. And I still stand by that message today. And I refuse to hold myself to a lower standard because I know that our Lord is good and His mercy endures forever. I believe in His grace, and I still believe in the power of redemption. And I know it may not happen overnight, but I promise I'll work every day to earn your forgiveness and your trust, and certainly make you proud. Now, when it comes to the substantive work that I've done in my job with fellow patriots in Congress this past year, there's a whole lot to be proud of. In January, I followed through on my promise to change the way Congress works during the Speaker's nomination. It made the DC establishment uneasy. Face it, they don't like change. But I came to Congress to be a true voice for Americans, not to make friends or stick to business as usual. In fact, I've come to realize that either you leave Washington, D.C. a hero, or you hang around long enough to be a part of the establishment problem. We passed rules during that speaker's fight like single subject legislation, mandating 72 hours to read a bill before voting on it. What a concept. No more passing a bill to find out what's in it. We also passed rules like allowing any member to bring amendments to the House floor on legislation, and even reforming a corrupt earmark system. As part of the new changes, patriots like myself, Matt Gaetz, Eli Crane, Andy Biggs, we fought to bring back the Holman Rule, which allows us to target bureaucrats that unelected fourth branch of government, really, that abuses the separation of powers, who are pushing a woke agenda on Americans instead of simply doing what's right. I've introduced amendments to defund the salaries of woke equity and diversity officers because we should be investing in American people who believe in America, not the propagandists who want to divide us based on how we look and think. When the Biden administration continued to attack the American oil and gas industry, House Republicans led the charge to fight back by passing H.R. 1 through the House. Our bill to unleash American energy producers includes My American Energy Act, which supports our oil and gas producers in rural Colorado and across the country while driving energy costs down. Think about it. We need to be energy secure. We need to pursue energy dominance. We could be liberating our allies throughout the world, exporting freedom with our good, clean energy that we produce right here in America. Now, when I talk to voters of all ages, some of their biggest concerns are the inflation that's been driven out of control by Joe Biden and his Democrat cronies and finding more affordable housing options. Well, one way to make housing affordable again is to lower inflation, is to make living affordable again and stop the reckless spending in Washington, D.C. Now, these two issues that I'm talking about here, the cost of living and energy, they aren't separate. We need to make it more affordable to simply live in this country, and that starts with unleashing the American roughneck to bring our energy costs and gas prices down and actually cutting how much the federal government spends. And in case you forgot, we're now $33 trillion in debt. That's not a number that will be paid off by the Joe Bidens and Nancy Pelosi's of the world. Those trillions are now on the backs of millennials and Gen Z voters just like you. And beyond that, it's on the backs of our children and our children's children. The demands from lobbyists and special interests in D.C. to keep spending are powerful, but they won't sway me. They can make political threats, but I've always believed doing the right thing means doing the hard thing. That's why I've continued to fight for 12 single-spending individual appropriations bills and to end the decades of reliance on omnibus bills or continuing resolutions to fund our government. We even got 4 of those bills to come to the House floor just last night. This is a huge accomplishment since we haven't had 12 individual appropriations bills since the 1990s. You deserve leaders who listen to you and will protect your financial future, not the swamp creatures who thrive off our nation's addiction to printing more money. As a member of the House Oversight Committee, I've worked to hold the Biden crime family accountable and expose their decades of corruption. The only thing Joe Biden and Hunter Biden have ever sold out are access to our government and you, the American taxpayer. Just this week, we saw bank wirings from Chinese nationals that showed hundreds of thousands of dollars being sent to Hunter Biden with Joe Biden's home address listed on the paperwork. And the media and the Democrats still want you to believe that there's no evidence of corruption. The reality is the amount of substantive evidence we've discovered and presented to the American people is overwhelming. This corrupt, compromised resident of the White House needs to be impeached. Texas Youth Summit, I can't tell you enough what an honor it is to be serving in Congress and to be a strong and unwavering voice for your values every day. I've proven that it's possible to stand tall on your principles and get meaningful results for the country at the same time. I certainly haven't always been perfect, but I've always been fighting for you and your values. I'm thankful for your support, your grace, your love, and your incredible dedication for our country. It is wonderful to be with you virtually. I look forward to seeing you in person. Christian Collins, thank you again. And just a little shout out, we have a VIP special guest there with you this weekend, my very best friend who lives right there near the Woodlands, Miss Tara Sutton. So Tara, take care of my people, give them all a big hug for me, and I will see you all very soon. God bless.
Chief Division Counsel and DOJ have approved a no-knock breach. We want the subject to be on display, doing the walk of shame, full visual impact. Any questions?
Are we becoming a police state?
Government told American citizens they couldn't go to church on Sunday.
For the first time in my life, I'm saying to myself, am I going to get a knock at the door?
FBI warrant, come to the door now!
The Patriot Act and FISA were used against Donald Trump.
These individuals have commissioned the biggest propaganda play in U.S. history.
They don't go after the people that rigged the election. They go after the people that want to find out what the hell happened.
We don't need to have a crime. What we need is a person to look at. And then we go find out what crime you did.
FBI! Our focus is shifting. Our main priority as a bureau is going to be domestic terrorism.
It really paints anybody who's right of center.
If you're a pro-life, pro-family Catholic, they define you as radical.
These are anti-government,
We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech!
violent extremists, and they must be dealt with. We can do anything we want.
Hey everyone. I hope that didn't scare you too much. My name is Debbie D'Souza. I'm the other half of the D'Souza. I just want to say this movie is going to be in theaters for 2 nights, starting October 23rd and October 25th, Wednesday. And if it does really, really well, it could come back. So you guys fill up those theaters. We do things a little differently now because of the censorship. We actually buy out the theaters ourselves, and then we just rely on all the patriots to go and just fill up the theaters for us so that you can get the word out. Dinesh can't be here tonight. He's in Illinois, but I just wanted to tell you guys that we are facing a crisis in this country like nothing we've ever seen. When political opponents get imprisoned or targeted for simply having a difference of opinion. That, my friends, is a police state. And they may argue, oh, you know, who's the one doing it? Who's the one behind the police state? Well, who's the one imprisoned? Who's the one getting all of the indictments? It's not Biden, right? So the Democrats definitely take part in making sure that conservatives do not have a voice. And I love seeing so many young people out here because I know that you are the future of this country and you are going to keep it from becoming a police state. I was born in a country that is now a police state. I was born in Venezuela, and I will tell you that the parallels are stunning. Everything that is happening now happened in Venezuela, and people woke up too late. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is a serious problem. And when we make these movies, this is probably the 3rd movie that I've co-written, directed, and helped write with Dinesh. We do it because we feel that this is the heartbeat of what is happening in the country, and we want to get the word out. We want people to understand the circumstances. And by the way, one of the key components of a police state is election fraud. Why? Because they want to make sure that the people that win the election are the police state. So with that, I will leave you, and thank you again. And please, the 23rd, guys, is a Monday, October 23rd, October 25th. So please help us get the word out. It's policestatefilm.net. So go there and pre-purchase the tickets, and we will see you there. Thank you.
Abby, thanks so much for joining us.
I think what we need to recognize is that there are walking wounded among us.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
We're talking about, over 60 million babies that have died. As a therapist, I think more about the emotional consequences of this. It pits women against their own children. And of course, that's going to create a deep wound inside of them because abortion is so incredibly unnatural.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I'm a fighting Texas Aggie, so howdy. Are there any Aggies here? Like you're going to A&M right now? Yay, yay, yay. Well, I'm so glad to be here with you all. I'm like the last speaker. Are you guys tired and kind of done? No, okay. Well, anyway, I don't know. I've listened to the speakers. I've listened to most of what you've heard tonight, and I might kind of give you a different take. Are you ready for that? Okay. All right. Because we're here for diversity of thought, right? So I'm up here, standing up here, looking at you, telling you, I kind of am a boss babe. I have 8 kids. I have a bachelor's degree. I have a master's degree. And I just got my doctorate. I successfully am the CEO of 2 nonprofits, 2 multi-million-dollar nonprofits. I'm a therapist. I'm a successful therapist. I have an amazing husband. And I'm not here to tell you that you can do it all at one time, but I'm here to tell you, don't limit yourself. Because God does have an amazing plan for each of you. And He does want you to live out that plan. And your path may look different than someone else's. But don't ever let someone stand up on a stage and tell you what you can't do. Always go to the Lord and ask Him what He wants you to do. That is what we need to be doing as Christians. I think a lot of times in our society, and I see this all the time on social media, we look to the internet, we look to influencers, we look to podcasters, we look to social media, we look all over the place looking for opinions, looking for information. We're looking to people to tell us how to live our lives. Well, I'm telling you, you need to open up the Word of God. That's the instruction book that will tell you the best way to live your life. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I am going to tell you the things I did in my life to hopefully help you understand the things that maybe you shouldn't do. Every single person that stood up here on this stage tonight has a dark history, and they haven't shared that with you. They've all told you how you should live your life. But I'm going to share with you some of the things that I did in my life, because I think vulnerability is important. I was raised in a Christian home, probably like many of you. And we didn't talk about abortion. We didn't really talk about social issues. When I was 20 years old, I found out I was pregnant for the first time. I remember taking that pregnancy test. I found out it was positive, so I took 6 more because I thought surely that first one was wrong. And they were all positive. And I went to my boyfriend at the time, and I told him I was pregnant. And he said, "Oh, don't worry." He said, "I know what to do. I know where to take you. I've taken other girls there before." And I would really like to tell you that I looked at him and I said, "God, you're a piece of crap." Or, "Gosh, maybe we should think about having this baby. We've been doing really adult things in the bedroom, so maybe we should consider making an adult decision about the child we've created." Or I would really like to tell you that I picked up the phone and called my parents. My parents who had loved me my whole life unconditionally, who really deserved to know what I was thinking when it came to the life of their grandchild, but I didn't do any of that. I just said, "Okay." And I made an appointment, and we went to Houston, and he dropped me off on the curb, and I went in, and I don't remember how far along I was. I don't remember if I had an ultrasound. I don't remember much about it, but I remember it was very painful physically. And I woke up in a recovery room. And I remember being escorted out of that recovery room and into the clinic waiting room. And my boyfriend wasn't there yet. And I asked the worker there, I said, "Well, my boyfriend's not here. Can I sit here in the waiting room until he comes back to get me?" And she said, "No, you have to wait outside." And so I did. So I went to wait on the curb, and he picked me up, and we rode home in silence. And I never talked about it. We never talked about it again. And I thought, okay, that's it. I had my abortion. This is going to be my one mistake, and I'm never going to be in this situation again. And my parents are never going to know, and my parents are still going to think that, I'm abstinent, and I'm not engaging in sex, and that's what I need them to believe. Because they've raised me to be this good little Christian girl, and I was on birth control, right? And so I'm not supposed to get caught, but I got caught in my sin, and so an abortion fixed it. And so I just stuffed it down, and I thought I'm never going to have to talk about it again, and my parents are never going to find out. And a year later, I was introduced to Planned Parenthood. I did not have my first abortion at a Planned Parenthood. I had it at a private clinic. And I was introduced to Planned Parenthood, and that was when I first got involved with them. I got involved with them as a volunteer, and I graduated from school. I went to work for them. And a year after I was working for them, I got pregnant again. Same guy. And by the time that I found out I was pregnant, we were no longer together, and I didn't want to have any connection to this guy again. And I was already working at the clinic, so choosing an abortion for the second time was easy. But this time, I thought I would have a medication abortion, the pill abortion. We told everybody it was natural. We told everybody this was an easy type of abortion. And so I got the pills. I took the first pill in the clinic. The first pill that you take, I was 8 weeks pregnant. And I took the first pill in the clinic. Now, the first pill that you take is what actually kills your baby. So I took the first pill, and my baby was dead. And then a day later, they had given me 4 pills to take at home. And so I took those 4 pills. And what I had told all these other women, and so then what I believed, was that I would just have some minor bleeding, some minor cramping. It wouldn't be any big deal, just like a period. But that's not what happened. Within about 30 minutes of taking those pills at home, I began to hemorrhage. I was bleeding profusely. I began having pain unlike anything I had ever felt before in my life. I had never had a baby at that time. I'd never delivered a child, so I didn't realize that the pain I was experiencing in that moment was actually labor pains, because I was about to deliver a child, a dead child. And so I made my way into the bathroom. And I was sitting on the toilet, and I was bleeding so much. And I was in so much pain. I remember I was sweating. I was hurting. I'd never had pain like that before, where I was sweating from pain. And I was in so much pain, I began to get sick. I began to get nauseous, and I began vomiting. And I thought, I need to get in the shower. Maybe if I can just get in the shower and I just have warm water pouring over me, maybe that will make me feel better. And so I did. I got in the shower, and I had this water pouring over me. And I felt this excruciating pain in my abdomen, and all of a sudden, I felt my baby come out of my body. And I heard it. I heard it hit the shower floor. And I didn't want to look down. I didn't want to look and see what was on that shower floor. But I knew I was going to have to. And so eventually I did. Eventually I leaned down, and I picked up my baby, and I held it in my hand. And then what? I didn't know what to do. I felt panicked. I thought, this is not supposed to happen. I didn't know I was going to be holding my child in my hand. But just in this feeling of panic, I didn't know what else to do, and so I just dropped my baby into the toilet and just flushed the toilet as fast as I could. And that was it. I sat in the bathtub, still in a lot of pain and still bleeding. And I filled up the bathtub with water, and at some point in time, I fell asleep or I passed out, I don't know, but sometime later I woke up and the water was cold. And I was horrified when I woke up because the tub was just full of blood. It was just red. And I remember thinking in that moment, oh my gosh, it looks like I'm in the middle of a crime scene. And I thought, well, I guess I kind of am, because I just killed my baby. I crawled out of the bathroom, crawled out of the bathtub. I laid on the bathroom floor. And I don't know how long I laid there. It was hours and hours. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die here. This is how I'm going to die. And I prayed and I prayed that it would not be my parents who found me. You see, these decisions that I've made in my life, I don't tell you these stories because I want you to feel bad for me, or because I want to scare you. I tell you these stories because I do understand the culture that you're living in today. I do understand the pressure that you're under as a young person. I do understand that as a Christian today, as a young person who is a Christian, as a young person who believes in God, you're swimming upstream. I get that. The reason I share this with you today is to encourage you to keep being countercultural. Because, friends, you don't want this story. You don't want my story. You don't want to one day lie on a bathroom floor and wonder if you're going to make it out of that bathroom alive. You see, there are some of you right now that are probably struggling with issues in your life. I'm not blind to that, because I struggled with issues when I was your age. There are some of you in here who are probably having sex with your boyfriend or girlfriend. There are some of you in here who are probably dealing with pornography issues. You're not a loser for that. None of you are losers. You're just sinners, like me, like every other person in here. And I'm not up here to chastise you for the struggles in your life. But I am up here to tell you that there is a very real and very loving God who can help you make a U-turn in your life. And gosh, I wish I would have made that U-turn in my life before I was responsible for killing 2 of my children. Before I was responsible for working at Planned Parenthood for 8 years of my life and facilitating over 22,000 abortions. God, I wish I would have made that turnaround. wish somebody would have spoken into my life and they would have said, Abby, it's not too late. There's something better for you. God wants something better for you. God has something better for you. And He loves you so much. And He can take away whatever burden you're feeling in your heart. And He can forgive you for whatever sin you're struggling with. And He can make you new. He can renew your soul. That's what I want you to hear from me. If He can forgive somebody like me, He can turn anybody's life around. And so you're going to hear this weekend a lot about politics. And that's good. As people of faith, we should be concerned about politics. But at the end of the day, it is not going to be politics that changes this culture. It is not. Politics has not ended abortion in the state of Texas. And technically, abortion is supposed to be illegal in the state of Texas. But are women still having abortions in the state of Texas? You better believe it. In fact, by every report that we have seen, abortions are at a record high here in the state of Texas, now that they've been made technically illegal. Laws are important. I'm not saying that they're not. I spoke at the Republican National Convention, for goodness sake, in 2020. I believe in laws. I believe that laws are a teacher. I believe they're important. But it will not be policy that changes this culture, friends. It will be the one true living God. And you will hear people tell you, maybe not at this conference, but throughout your life, you will hear people say to you, you know what, you need to really, in order to reach people, we really need to take on a secular perspective, a more secular perspective. Let's just talk about science. Let's not really talk about God. Let's just be more scientific. I was at a conference one time and they were talking about tabling on their campus for pro-life issues, and a girl was instructing these students, and she said, if you're wearing a cross around your neck and you're tabling, you might want to hide it underneath your shirt because we really want to appear secular. And I went up later and I stood up on that stage and I said, that's the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. And I said, if you are a Christian, if you are a believer in the one true God, then you should stand up everywhere you go and proudly proclaim that gospel. We should never, ever, ever be ashamed of God. Ever. And that is the only truth. That gospel is the only truth that will change this culture. It will not be politics. It will not be policy. And it will not be Donald Trump. It will be Jesus Christ. So if there's one thing that you hear from me tonight, it is this. Know that there is always a better way when you look to the Lord. Know that there is nothing too great that you can ever do in your life that the Lord can't turn around and use for His glory. And everywhere you go, be proud of the one who gave His life for you. God bless you, and thank you very much.
So right now, pretty much every big institutional investor in the West is guided by something called ESG. The idea is you invest your money in companies whose values align with those of the Democratic Party. And this is everywhere. But there's at least one person who's decided to make it easier for the rest of us to buck that trend. He's made an app that promotes companies that promote the United States. The man is Michael Seifert. He's the founder and CEO of Public SQ. He joins us to explain.
We at Public Square are actively transforming this great nation for the better, and we're shifting the power structures of society back toward we the people. And we're doing this by encouraging patriotic Americans around this great country to vote with their wallets, shop in alignment with their values. We have created the largest network of patriotic consumers and businesses the world has ever seen, and we're just getting started. But I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want you to hear from some of the profound leaders of our movement about why they love engaging in the public square.
Wokeness has taken over corporate America. My friend Michael Seifert understood this, which is why he created Public Square.
We need to, as Americans, as patriots, put our money into businesses that support our values. We can hop on Public Square, find businesses that align with our values, freedom, faith, patriotism, standing up for America first, and then that's where we shop. Public Square is where it's at, friends.
The number of small businesses that have failed during the coronavirus pandemic is staggering. To stay afloat, some of them are actually reopening and ignoring mask and vaccine mandates, oftentimes with significant blowback. Well, now there is a blossoming online community for businesses that do not require or comply with COVID restrictions.
The fact that you can find businesses that share your values in a place as blue and insane as the South Side of Chicago, I'm going to use this and go to these businesses. You should, bro. 100%, I don't want to give money to people who hate me.
The next time you're out and about, or the next time you're logged on and you're about to buy a new item, order something, shop, eat at a restaurant, stay at a new location, try a small mom and pop owned business that shares your same values.
So in less than 1 year, Public Square, I've been telling you about them. They've grown to be the largest platform of patriotic, freedom-loving businesses the world has ever seen.
You want to support small businesses and buy services and products that are made by people who align with you. And that's what Public SQ allows you to do.
Michael, I was in Idaho Falls last week, and I was in Florida before that. You know what I did, Michael? I opened up my Public Square app, and I said, I'm only going to get coffee. Because when I'm traveling, I don't want to go support some LGBT trans thing. And so we get our coffee, we get our food from patriots.
Stop giving your money to people that hate you, okay? Shop your values.
We at Public Square are so grateful that we've had the opportunity to lock arms with patriotic consumers and businesses alike. And we would love for you to join the journey with us, because ultimately Public Square is the only platform where you can search for businesses that share your worldview, shop in alignment with your values, and then share that experience with all of your friends so that we can continue to grow this great patriotic movement, one business and one consumer at a time. So what are you waiting for? To get started, head to publicsq.com today, or you can search for Public Square app in App Store or Google Play, and we'd love it if you join us on the journey.
Well, thank you so much for coming to the Texas Youth Summit on the first night. We were so thrilled to have you. And we'll have a QR code up on the screen, and if anyone would like to give and to support what we're doing, we'd love to have your support. But right while we do that, I also want to give away some t-shirts. So who wants a t-shirt? All right. Try to work this side of the room. Okay. You guys gonna wear these tomorrow? Awesome. The shirts, does everyone see what they say? Don't tread on me. Okay, we'll do one. Awesome. All right, guys, we'll get some rest. 7 a.m. in the morning. It's going to be an awesome day tomorrow. Look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you.